Yo, what's up, Bulldogs? I got another live stream for you today. Today I have Rob Soltan on, who I discovered from the whole thing that was going on with the GameStop Reddit thing, Diamond Hands and all that, and actually kind of by coincidence too. I was interested because I just recently, I just talked to you guys, I bought some gold. Finally, I was trying to hedge a little bit, and so if you want to know why gold's going down right now, why precious metals are going down, it's because I bought it. Is because I'm like the opposite of Midas. Like everything I touched, as soon as I entered the market right before the coronavirus, and when I was holding a bunch of cash. So anyway, that's why it's going down. But I saw Rob, and I thought that he just had a great analysis on everything. Had a really good background on precious metals and on what was going on with the stock market, and understand the actual banking system. So few people actually understand all that stuff, and really just good presentation skills as well. So anyway, Rob, really glad to have you on here, and it's good timing too, because we get to discuss what's been going on today.
Man, it's great to be here, John. I really appreciate the invite to be on your podcast here. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't in a little bit of pain today when you see the market getting hit like this in precious metals. Even in Bitcoin as well had a nice pullback from about 58,000 down to 46, 47. And I'm kind of one of the different precious metals bugs out there that also appreciates Bitcoin as well. So to see the kind of pullbacks going on in the market, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, in my opinion, and the real money seems to be made when you can look past the smoke and mirrors and make a long-term thesis and stick to that long-term thesis and not let the short-term technical analysis of things distract you from whatever your long-term thesis is on your investments.
So let me test my long-term thesis against you and see what you think about it. The Federal Reserve has been printing a shit ton of money. They're saying, oh, it doesn't matter because we've moved from we're at a floor model now. So even though we've printed all this money, it's all in banks in reserve. They're holding it in reserve. So it's not actually, there's no velocity. It's not in circulation. But I think that's a load of crap in the sense that they're doing unprecedented things, right? The federal government used to just buy bonds. Now they're buying anything they want. I don't call it buying. I call it stealing. Because when you print money and then take it, it's like it's like if I took monopoly money and bought your stuff at a yard sale. So that's kind of my opinion on it. But so what I'm looking at is there's no way that we're not going to hit massive inflation. That this is just kicking the can so far down the road. So my long-term outlook is anything that hedges against inflation, precious metals. Potentially Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is maybe a long shot at becoming a world reserve currency, but potential. I mean, you got to put your money somewhere, and the asset price that we've been seeing have been going up because of that inflation that's first hit those big assets and then will come down to the consumers. That's kind of my like long-term theory. So that's why I'm saying, okay, gold. Having physical gold, having a little bit of maybe the gold ETF or in silver, and then holding on to cryptocurrency. Am I wrong? Is there what's your thoughts?
Yellen wouldn't like you very much, and neither would Powell over there at the Fed. Don't be talking like that about them. They're not going to like that kind of talk, John. You're speaking with logic and rational, thought out arguments here. They don't do that kind of thing over at the Fed. They think that they can print $13 trillion in a year and a half, and that nothing's happens because of that. People don't realize the entire market cap of gold and silver is roughly, silver somewhere around, let's say 1 trillion to 1.5 trillion on its market cap, and then gold somewhere around 10 trillion. So you're talking about roughly, we'll put a larger, figure on it and just speak with rounded numbers, less than 13 trillion. Let's just put it that way. And they printed roughly 13 trillion in a year and a half.
Right.
So you're talking about the entire market cap of both silver and gold combined.
Right.
And they're saying these guys have they'll plain face say and just blank on their face say, yeah, no inflation's going to happen. The dollar's getting stronger. Just believe us. Trust us. We're the Fed. And they don't like the kind of logical arguments that you just laid down right there, John. So I agree with that thesis. Me specifically, I'm a little bit skeptical of gold, and it's kind of odd for me to say that as a precious metals bull, because the bull case for gold would mean that we go back to a gold standard, and basically these, children that have been getting away with, everything they've been getting away with over at the Fed have to go back to a gold standard and own up to all the damage they've caused from dropping off the gold standard in 1971. Now, if that happened, which is a very possible scenario, if that happened where we backed our money to gold, or say, maybe China backed their money to gold, or another country backed their money to gold, maybe they beat us to the punch. Maybe they force us to go back to gold. And if that happens, then you're talking a price of gold that can be tens of thousands of dollars per ounce. You're talking about gold being that far suppressed that it could just immediately overnight be a much, much higher figure on gold. I'm specifically very bullish on silver and platinum myself because they're industrial metals. Silver is my number one holding of all metals. So obviously on a day like today, when it's down $1, I'm down, 20 grand or something. And I'm going, my heart,
Yeah.
But the thing is, you don't lose unless you sell. And for me, I look at the smoke and mirrors of everything and go, gold should be over 10,000 an ounce right now. Silver should be in the hundreds of dollars per ounce right now. And I stick to that thesis regardless of the smoke and mirrors that are put in front of me, regardless of the false suppression going on. I just don't buy into them saying, the dollar is getting stronger after we just printed, the entire market cap of gold and silver in a year and a half. When everybody's suffering, all of these loans that were given out that they don't even expect a payback on them. These PPE loans, people just took them. And they're like, we still have all of our employees, and we're keeping it. And it's like, well, where does everybody think this money comes from? Do they think money just falls from the sky? Is this what the whole logic is behind everything of this whole everybody should get free stuff sort of thing? And it's just, there's no consequences to this. And it's not the thing I respect about Peter Schiff is somebody who I go head to head with Bitcoin and whatnot. I pretend like I'm going head to head with him. We don't actually talk. He's commented on some of my videos in the past, and that was back when Bitcoin. So I went after him because he did like a lighthearted passive aggressive comment where he's like, I hope your channel ends up doing better than Bitcoin in the end. And Bitcoin at the time was like 17,000, and so I ended up doing pretty well on Bitcoin from there until now. I mean, I'm still looking at, if I was going into Bitcoin right now, I wouldn't be wanting to put more than a 5% position of my decentralized portfolio in it. But because I got in early, it's a larger position than I had originally planned out. Exactly. And now I just am sitting on that position. But I'm still very skeptical of Bitcoin. I'm still very skeptical of cryptocurrency. There's a lot of different scenarios that could happen that could cause a big pullback. Do I think they could kill Bitcoin? I think they want to. They don't want it to exist. And Yellen's comments, I mean, what Yellen said recently, I don't mean to get off track, but Yellen's comments on what she said about Bitcoin, well, she said it as a whole, but she really means it specifically about Bitcoin, and she wants to charge gains taxes on things that you haven't even declared a gain on yet. So if the audience doesn't know what that means, it's like, okay, say you're up on Tesla, you bought Tesla at 300 prior to the stock split, and now it's at 700 or wherever it is right now, and you got to multiply that by 5, so you have some huge gain on your hands on Tesla, but you never sold your Tesla position. The whole reason for having an IRA or having a 401k is to leave your money in the market, and you get rewarded for leaving your money in the market. And you don't have to pay as much taxes later on because you left your money there. But what are they going to do is, according to Yellen, you're going to say, okay, well, let's force them to sell their Tesla stock to pay for the gain that they had on Tesla stock. It's like, how does that make sense? How does it make sense? And really what it is people afraid that people that are buying Ethereum, buying Bitcoin, are buying it and not planning to sell it.
Exactly.
They're not planning to sell it. They're planning to stick with it. And so they're going, okay, well, what do we do in this situation here? And be charged taxes, when you haven't even declared that gain yet. I can only imagine what they're going to try to do, the 1031 exchange in real estate.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah, I'm heavily invested in real estate. I have a lot of real estate properties, and I mean, I just exercise the 1031 exchange to convert 6 properties into 1 property, a bigger property, and I mean that's going to kill real estate prices on income real estate if you can't 1031 exchange it. But yeah, I mean the thing with cryptocurrency, it's like to me it reminds me of the whole. Like, let's destroy the factories, the assembly lines, because industrialization is going to put us out of jobs, and it's like, I mean, at this point, like Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, you can literally take money and move it out of any country and into any country that you want at this point. I mean, that's a dangerous proposition. I think that's what they're trying to stop. And then also, even on the tax basis, I mean, it's so interesting because I've got like on my wallet, right? It's like, this is my wallet's on my phone, and then I mean, theoretically, who could prove that I have the password to my wallet? maybe I lost it. So maybe it's like, oh, I wish I could pay the taxes on it, but I don't own the asset anymore. I mean, you can't prove that I own it, right? I mean, it's 12 words that are in my head. Maybe if I didn't forget them, right? Like I like there's so many scenarios that come up where I'm thinking it's so unenforceable. Like, what are you going to do? You know, if I say, oh, I don't have my wallet, someone stole it.
Yeah, and I kind of, the way I learned something is, you know, someone can tell me the fire's hot, but I have to put my hand there and just be like, okay, it's hot. I get it, you know? And for me, it was, okay, I'm just going to order all of these hard wallets and bounce Bitcoin around and play with it and see how this whole system really works, how much it's charging me per transaction when I send it from this wallet to this wallet. If I send 10 grand to this one to that one, I send 1 grand here to there, how much is it going to charge me? And the more I did it, the more I realized this is a very elegant system that you have here in place. And they couldn't shut this. I made a couple of videos recently on the channel about how they couldn't shut down Bitcoin in the same reason that they just said, oh yeah, we're shut down for 3 hours at the Fed. Nobody can do a wire transfer. Nobody can do an ACH. It just is what it is. And this is what happened the other day. And that didn't go over my head because I think in the back of my mind, what happens if they shut down the Fed for a week? You know, they shut down the ability to send wire transfer for a whole week. What happens in that situation? And we're supposed to accept that they can just shut down for 3 hours. You know, what happens if it goes for longer periods of time than that? And so it kind of draws some light into the elegance of a decentralized network, because essentially all the electricity across the entire world would have to be shut down. The internet connection across the entire world would have to be shut down to stop a blockchain network that is decentralized in this way. And that includes Ethereum. That includes a lot of tokens. If you were to shut down, the only way to shut down is to shut down the entire internet. And we'd have a lot bigger problems than just, you know, Bitcoin or monetary systems in general if the entire electricity of the world was shut down or if the entire internet was shut down. So the decentralized aspect of it is very elegant when you think about what recently happened with the Fed. Just saying, we can't send Fed wires right now. We can't send ACHs, and it is what it is. There is no, you can't pay us more money. You can't pay us less money. There's just, we're shut down, period. That was very odd to me. But the whole system with Bitcoin, they don't want this to exist. They don't want the ability for you to memorize 12 seed phrases in your head. If you set up a wallet, what it does is it gives you 12 words, or sometimes they give you 24 words. And if you memorize those 12 words or the 24 words of your seed phrase, you essentially have your password stored in your head. And you could remove all evidence that you have that password. I could literally take my hard wallet, hit it with a hammer, throw it in a pool, and I would still have access to my Bitcoin because I memorized my password in my head. And so that gives, when I talk about the history of gold, when I think about the history of gold, they outlawed gold in 1933. Roosevelt outlawed gold. So you literally, it was illegal to own it. And this lasted for quite some time. And so you think about this, well, if they outlawed Bitcoin and people memorize their seed phrases, I've memorized far more lame things in college. I don't know about you, but when I was, you know, before I dropped out of college, I was memorizing flashcards of far more lame things than my entire wallet of my money, you know? So I can handle 12 words or 24 words and memorize those.
Just read, if you guys want to know how to memorize things, just read Moonwalking with Einstein, and you'll have it there. It's a really good book on memorization. But
I gotta look into that. I'm a fan, obviously.
Yeah, you would like it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Moonwalking with Einstein. It's about a journalist that started investigating the world memory competitions, like these guys that memorize decks of cards and all this stuff. And he started training with them, and he actually won the U.S. title after training with them. Of the memorization competition. And I can tell you, like, I can memorize a 10 item list just instantly. Like the first time you tell it to me, I can recite it back to you automatically.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm old school where I'll get flashcards and just like force myself, but I'm sure there's a better way to go, and so I'll look into that. I'll appreciate the recommendation.
Yeah. Actually, if you have a 10 item list, I could. What's your wallet address?
Well, let me just tell the audience right now.
I can show you. I can show you if you have a 10 item list of something.
Yeah, I have the OCD thing, so I actually even got multiple wallets. So I have like a bunch of these different wallets. Kobo Wallet, one of these companies, is sending me a couple products to review for them and test out, and it's kind of new for me to get that. I'm like, I'll just buy it. I don't really care. But I talked with them because they were sold out of a product that I wanted. I'm like, I really want to try this out. I don't think it's fair to test your lower end wallet against the Trezor or something like that. I'd like to test out your highest end wallet. They're like, yeah, we'll send you one. It's like, oh wow, that's new. I'm not used to that. Appreciate it, man. You know, try it out. And so I have the OCD thing where it's like, I'll put some over there, some over there. I'll put some of my Ethereum over there, some of my Bitcoin over there, some of that. I'm recently starting to look into Ethereum, and I bought a little bit of it recently just to kind of start dabbling in Ethereum. But I'm very skeptical after reading the white paper. I'm a fan of Vitalik's. I think he's a very smart guy, literally a genius, the guy who created Ethereum. But I just don't like the fact that it can inflate in the same way that fiat currency can inflate. They can inject more Ethereum into the system, whereas Bitcoin is a flat 21 million Bitcoin that can be made. And then it actually is a deflationary asset. It's the only one that is a top coin. Well, it's the top coin. It's about 80% of the overall cryptocurrency market cap. So a lot of people don't understand just how big of a position Bitcoin holds of the entire cryptocurrency space. You're talking about 80%. I mean, if you're talking about the Dow or the S&P 500, you're talking about one company that has 80% of this market cap here.
So on the Ethereum, real quick, check out. I just did a live stream with him, Gregory from DAP University. He's one of my coaching clients, and he has a site, a YouTube channel called DAP University, and we talked about it in there. But basically, like, the case for Ethereum that I think is really that, that sort of counters all those issues is that. So I mean, the biggest case for it of the value of a network like that is decentralized finance, right? With the whole GameStop thing. That's what I bought a bunch of Ethereum after the GameStop thing, because I said, look what happened, right? So, like, those short positions, if you use a broker to hold GameStop, then they let other people borrow your short positions, and they got the VIC on it. They took the interest on your short, but you didn't get that. I mean, they charged anyone who was borrowing GameStop 30% at one point for those stocks, right, on the margin, and you didn't get any of that. But if you were actually the registered holder of the stocks, if they were actually in your name, not in your brokerage name, you would have gotten the 30%, because they'd have to pay you to borrow your shares. But they lent out your shares for you, and you got nothing for it. And so that whole thing, and then plus with Robinhood shutting down and all that kind of stuff, it was like, if you have decentralized finance, then you're the bank. Like no one can stop it, no one can control it. You can borrow, lend out money, charge what you want. All, it's kind of a simplified version. But and then the other thing about it is, as far as like the inflationary product of it. So when you trade Ethereum, when you do a transaction on the Ethereum network, you burn it. So it gas fees, right? So it actually diminishes the amount of Ethereum that or Ether that exists. And then the final part of it is that they're moving to this Ethereum 2.0 model, where instead of a proof of work, it'll be a proof of stake. And so what will happen is that people that want to be nodes in it will need to stake 32 Ether to be a node. And so a lot of people are going to be staking, and that's going to take all of that, or even with the DeFi, they'll be staking their Ethereum, which will take a lot of that out of circulation. So it may actually become deflationary. So again, no one knows what's going to happen with these things, but just the kind of case for that, because a lot of people out there, that's why I said, like, I trust Gregory, because he's on the up and up. So many of the guys in the crypto space are just like, they're just telling you all kinds of tales, It's like
the doggy coins. They always say, no, it's Dogecoin. It's Dogecoin. I always joke around, it's doggy coin. It's I wish Elon Musk spent time, talking about Ethereum in the way that you just talked about it, saying the possible scenarios on how, a programmable money could be implemented to be such a beautiful thing in society, instead of just making a meme thing and joking around about these coins. And you see a lot of that in the cryptocurrency space. And the sad thing is, it takes away the credibility when you have some sort of joke of an altcoin or a joke of this or that. And you have the good side of it, where somebody that's, a 16-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid that gets, hyped up about the crypto space because of this. And then they learn, okay, well, Ethereum and Bitcoin were the ones I should have been looking at, and I made a mistake with this Dogecoin thing, and it might bring more eyeballs. And that's why I've always kind of went against Peter Schiff's arguments on Bitcoin, because it's like, at a bare minimum, these are Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, all these things, they are drawing awareness to how crazy the monetary system really is, and how badly we need checks and balances and money to be on a ledger. So we actually see, I mean, I always make this joke, but it's a very serious joke. It's, I can tell you exactly how many Bitcoins are out there to the Satoshi, and how many moved per day to the Satoshi or to the Ether. You can say to the exact amount of it that has been out there, but nobody can tell me the exact amount of dollars that are out there to the penny. Nobody, not even Jerome Powell himself. He doesn't even know. because realistically that they print money at the Fed through what they do. But then the situation that people don't understand is now the interest rates are at zero. These banks can give away unlimited loans. They don't even have to put 10% in the vault like they had to in fractional reserve banking. So they can just basically do whatever they want at this point. They can take your money. When you give them money, you're basically giving a bank a free loan. You're just saying, here's a free loan. I'll take my 0.00 whatever 1%. I get no money on my money that I give you, and then you guys get to leverage my money in whatever way you really want to leverage it. And so this whole scheme is just so blown out of proportion, and the money really gets multiplied by these commercial banks through all the loans they're giving out and everything like that. And I think it's just 2007 was a housing bubble crisis. What happens when we have a currency bubble crisis?
We know what happens historically. We've got Venezuela, we've got the Weimar Republic, we've got Zimbabwe, right? We've got all these countries that have experienced this, right? And the thing about hyperinflation is that it happens so damn quickly that like one day you're fine and the next day you are like your prices are doubling every 24 hours. So that's the thing that I fear. That's why I was like, I bought physical gold, and I was like, even if they shut down all the internet, I can shove that up my ass. It's like a few pounds of gold is not is not too much to if it comes down to it, right? You know what I mean? Like you gotta flee the country, and there you go. So
the elegance behind
good luck with the though.
I joke around. I'm like, if you want to rob me, you better be a body lifter, man. You better look like John or something, be able to lift these bars out of here and throw them over your shoulder or something. Because 1,000-ounce bar is a 70-pound bar, so each 100-ounce bar is 7 pounds. So this bar over here on the this is a 7-pound silver bar. And so what John's saying is very true. This is about, with the premium added on it, around a $3,200 bar, $3,300 bar. And so it's like, it's a good amount of money, $3,300, but it's gold looks a lot different. I could pull out a gold bar over there and it's a lot different, in size than something like this. But yeah, it's the thing about silver that I find very interesting is that now we're doing this new Green Deal thing. And, even here in California, we have to have solar panels on new developments, and solar panels use quite a bit of silver. They use about 0.6 troy ounces of silver per solar panel. And these electric cars use a lot of silver as well for all these semiconductors and everything. So as we keep going to this Green New Deal situation here, you're going to be using a lot more silver. And I would imagine these companies wanting to sign into contract, that they're going to get X amount of silver delivered to their company over this period of time. So I would imagine that starts getting the demand continues to outpace the supply. And we see that kind of continuing as we move towards, building more solar panels, more electric cars, and getting the amount of technology we have today, the amount of silver being used in this laptop and these phones, all these different semiconductors. And there's a little bit of gold used as well, but I'm very bullish on silver based on how much they use in the industrial age. But when it comes down to the scenario you just said, I wonder to myself, because if this was a diabolical game of chess, I would be backing my currency to gold. And if I wanted to be the reserve currency of the world, if I really wanted to take that place, I would back my fiat currency to gold, because a lot of people will say, well, yeah, you say the dollar is going to crash and this is going to happen, but we're the cleanest shirt in the dirty hamper of fiat currencies. We're in the dirty hamper here, but we're the cleanest shirt in the dirty hamper. Yeah. I think that there's a major possibility, though, of somebody trying to counter our reserve currency status, some other country out there that says, what, they print way too much money. It's pretty hypocritical that we say, this country over here might devalue their money or they devalue their money. And meanwhile, we're printing $13 trillion over the past year and a half and just printing money at will whenever we want, and it's just, it's crazy to see it. I'd be lying if I said I know exactly what's going to happen. I have some sort of crystal ball here, but I can say that this can't continue down this route. We can't continue on the route of just continuously printing money. I always make up, you see all these mob guys on YouTube now and making these mob channels and everything, talking about the history of the mob and everything. This Sammy the Bull guy, all these guys, and I'm fascinated by these guys talking. And what I think about in regards to the monetary system is if you took something for free from the mob, you took $100,000 from them, took a loan, you could think you're going to pay back that $100,000 to them and you're just going to get away fine. It's like, no,
Right.
you got a puppet screen there, you got a puppet string there, you got all kinds of puppet strings attached to your back. And,
Exactly.
the more free stuff you take, the less freedom you have. So you got to choose one or the other. You can't have both. And that's what a lot of people don't seem to understand these days. It's like the more free stuff you take, the less freedom you have. You can't have both,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, and I
scary
see
to see how much free stuff is given out too,
and I see two things that are. I mean, well, one thing that's saving us right now, that's preventing this what I see as like a it's a dam that's preventing this huge lake from overflowing, which is that the U.S. dollar is the world reserve currency, because we wouldn't be able to pull off this kind of shenanigans if because essentially when the treasury when they print a bunch of dollars, they're just taxing the entire world. It's like and how long is every country that's holding the US dollar going to accept the US government just taxing them, because it's the same thing as taxing them when you print the dollars. And then the second thing that I see is like you're saying, with the banks can lend out all this money at a 0% interest rate, and they don't have a deposit requirement anymore, but they're holding money, even though they don't have a deposit requirement, because the Federal Reserve is paying them a tenth of a percent interest on that, and that's free money for them. But the government the Federal Reserve is still paying that interest on it. And so how does the it's like a Ponzi scheme, right? It's like we're printing money, giving you the money, and then saying, oh, but don't put it into circulation because we'll give you interest on that money we just printed for you. And it's like at some point that falls apart because you got to pay. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. I feel like it's just like kicking the can so far down the road that at some point when that thing unravels, man, that's like, if they stop paying that interest, for example, then banks would just unleash all this ridiculous amount of money. So
Watch out. You're speaking with logic again, John. You're speaking with all this kind of logic stuff. This isn't normal, it's be careful with all that logic and rational thought there. It's, I make jokes saying, the only difference between Bernie Madoff and the current banking system is one of them has better friends. It's really, that's the only difference. You look at what's going on. Is if every single citizen across the country went to the bank and said, hey, I want my money out, I'd like all my money at the same time, they wouldn't be able to supply it.
Right.
They wouldn't be able to supply it. It's just, it's a leverage at least 2x, they might not be leveraged 10x, 20x, they might have a good amount of it in the vault or wherever they have the money. But realistically, it's just a digital number on the screen. All these the Reddit crowd and everything, they're going, okay, GameStop's the way we get back at the hedge funds. No, it's playing professional poker with a pro, and you called them all in and you beat Phil Ivey at the poker table. And that's awesome. You beat him, in the first hand, you got him, you caught him off guard, you caught him on a short squeeze, but then they showed you how much power they have. And they shut down and made it. You only have the ability to sell. That's basically, the Vladimir guy. I have no respect for what he did with Robinhood, because he didn't shut down the ability, period, to buy Robin. He made it so that it was a funnel so that you could only sell it. And so, if you have one option and it's down, what's going to happen? It's like they didn't make it so that you couldn't buy or sell. They made it so that you could only sell. And that's where the problem lies for me. And what happened there just shows, how much power these banks really have, these Citrons and the Melvin Capitals, all of them, when you put them in a corner. But back to the Reddit thing, if they really want to get back at the banks, they take their money out of the bank and they put it in things like Ethereum. They put it in Bitcoin. They put it in gold. They put it in silver. They put it in real estate. They put it into anything that is a tangible asset, maybe their own business. Something I love that I saw you post the other day is somebody was, trying to criticize you for saying, hey, I don't know about Bitcoin. I believe more in building your business and everything. And I couldn't agree more with that. I couldn't agree any more with that. If I was on my first 10 grand, and thinking to myself, oh, I'm going to put it on Bitcoin to the moon, it's like, no, that's a terrible idea. If you're working in, a lot of the people we're talking to, are on their first 10 grand, which is somewhere I was not very long ago when I was first building up my first nest egg. You don't want to be putting your money on a speculative play when you're with your first nest egg. You want to be building a business. So I stand by what you said there 100%. It's so true. And I'm somebody from, that space. And it's, if I was giving somebody genuine advice, there isn't any more genuine advice than saying building your own business, learning knowledge and actually understanding the business world prior to making investments. I couldn't agree more with you on that situation there.
Yeah, good. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm glad that you agree with that. It's so funny because even just here in the chat, we've got a couple of because people got triggered because I had like I think a meme on the thumbnail. Like, it's like anytime I say anything anti-Bitcoin at all, even though I'm holding more Bitcoin than the people that are hating on me for being anti-Bitcoin. I'm not anti-Bitcoin at all. I'm just anti-YOLO. That's what I'm anti. I'm anti thinking that somehow you're going to take this shortcut in life and that you're going to bet it all on red. And if it comes up red, you're a genius, but you're a dumb genius because a fool and his money are soon parted. So you're not even going to hang on to that money anyway. Instead of just like putting in the work and building up something of value and doing it that way, doing it the long haul. Maybe, I mean, there's faster ways to be smart and to be an entrepreneur and build business. But yeah, investing in yourself is where, and guys get me all the time, right? Young guys ask me, they're like, what should I do with $5,000 or $10,000? Like, should I put it in stocks or ETF or, and I'm like, invest it in yourself, buy books, go to a seminar, whatever you need to do, public speaking, learn whatever it is, like invest all that money in yourself because you're going to get a much higher return than any other thing. So
the best thing there's a book I read about this guy who was I forget what the name of it was a guy who created this company called Sun Life Organics, and he talked about how the only path is a straight and narrow. You want some easy route, you want some quick flip to make your first million, but the only real path and the only path that where you keep that money is when you make it on the straight and narrow, and you make it just building a brand, building your company, building up your ideas. And we see a lot of people that go, okay, GameStop to the moon, AMC to the moon, Dogecoin to the moon, and I'm just going to make a quick $100,000, and then what? Well, you got it so luckily that you're going to lose it real lucky, and you're going to realize $100,000 really isn't much, and that's it's crazy to say that, because I remember in my mind it was like $100,000, I want to get to that number, and then you get to that number and it's like, okay, well, now what? And it's just, if you don't acquire any knowledge on how to build things and you don't know how to use that money to your benefit, then you just will inevitably lose that money because you got it so easily. If it comes easy, it goes easy. And I couldn't agree more, about putting the money in the right places. That being said, with Bitcoin, with everything going on right now, and after going through Bitcoin and really studying everything going on with it, I'm very bullish, more so than I've ever been, even after this pullback. That's not saying that I would take my entire nest egg and put it all into Bitcoin. But the more I think it's foolish to consider Bitcoin a zero and completely worthless. Or it's foolish to go all in on Bitcoin, and it's equally foolish to have none of it. So yes. I think it's that kind of situation there. But if I was on my first 10 grand, I mean, that'd be back of the days living in the back of my car, bouncing around pawn shops, finding cool stuff to flip online, and that was what I did with my money. I'm like, I'm getting some books, I'm throwing this book in the back, and I bought like The Secret, I bought Power of Now, I bought 48 Laws of Power, I bought The 4 Agreements. These are all books that I threw in the back of my car, and I just took off on a road trip around the country, going pawn shop to pawn shop to pawn shop, trying to find cool stuff. And that's how I started building in the collectibles world, was that. But going back, I wouldn't go, looking back on it, would have been nice if, I guess, in that time I threw my money in Bitcoin, I'd be filthy rich right now from that. But, I still wouldn't have wanted to make it that way. I would have wanted to make it the straight and narrow way and actually build what I'm building on now, because now my foundation is strong. Instead of being some big lucky house of cards, you have a strong foundation that you actually learned. And that's what you're preaching. And so I stand by exactly what you said. I agree with you.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, guys, they don't realize, like, I've said on my channel before, and people have tried to call bullshit on me. They're like, I said, hey, if someone came to me tomorrow and said, I'm going to give you $10 million, I would turn it down. I would refuse it. I don't want $10 million from that I haven't earned. You know what I mean? Now, if I have a good business deal and it's very profitable and I make the money, sure, that's great. But like, winning the lottery would ruin most people's lives, right? Because
statistically, it has, literally. You're right. I mean, that's actually, I don't mean to cut you off, but statistically, you're right. I mean, they literally, people who have won the lottery end up losing it very fast. Same thing with the NBA players, same thing with people that make the money really quick. If it comes easy, it usually goes easy. And so it's sad to hear those stories, but at the same time, they learned their lesson, and then maybe they hit the drawing boards and they realize the things that you were talking about was true. It's like it's hard to tell people the truth, because people want an easy handout. They want an easy route. They want some quick fix to a very hard problem. And it is a very hard problem. And it's to learn, how the business world works. Nobody taught me how to make an LLC. Nobody taught me how the business world works. Nobody taught me the 1031 exchange when I was in high school. Nobody said these types of things. These are all things that you have to learn on your own, you know, and it's through getting books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, learning about how you have assets instead of liabilities. You know, these are all things that they don't teach you. They go, okay, you're 18 years old. You want $250,000 loan to go to UCSB or go to USC or something? Fantastic. Here you go. Here's a big student debt to you. And this is actually, you know, a secured debt. It's not an unsecured debt. You're going to have this debt with you for the rest of your life. I wish there was more financial education for the youth, and that's something that we can give credit to Bitcoin and to cryptocurrency as a whole, because it's actually getting the youth passionate and excited about learning about finance. You know, kids that didn't even know what the term fiat currency even meant, besides doing some quick little report on it in their class in high school or whatever it might be. They didn't actually look deep into what fiat currency is and how it got launched in 1971 by us here in the US, by Richard Nixon. He created fiat currency. But it's like the biggest, in my opinion, you know, this is just my opinion, I think it's the biggest con, you know, job in the entire history of the country, because basically all these people think it was just taking the power away from the United States citizens. What was happening at the time in 1971 is you had other countries around the world that were actually criticizing if the United States really had the gold that they were saying they had. Exactly, and so all of the countries were like, hey, you know, let's prove it. You, Nixon, you have the gold, prove it. We want the gold. And so Nixon was actually not some like, I mean, he did a lot of crazy stuff, Nixon, but he was actually put in a very tough pickle there, where it's like, okay, either we give our gold away because we really don't have this much gold, but we've been kind of, you know, artificially saying we have this much gold, and we've given all this money away and we've backed our dollars to this gold and silver, or we just say, no, we're not paying you. We're keeping it. And that's what he did. You know, and so it's crazy. Could you imagine if you were other countries in that situation where you just basically said, no, we're keeping the gold and there's nothing you can do about it. The dollar's dropped off the gold standard.
Well, yeah, it's a similar thing that's happening now, though, right? Because if you think about it, right, it's like the example I always use. I used to play Magic: The Gathering, and you know, any kind of collectible trading card game, right? There's this expensive card, Black Lotus, like the most expensive card in there, and I thought, okay, if I owned one of those and I had it framed on my wall, and then some guy next door is like, oh yeah, I'm printing a couple of those. Do you want another one? I'll sell you another one. Like, I'll be like, wait a minute, you're printing these things? You can't print these things. There's only like 100 in existence. You can't, if you print 100 more of them, mine's going to not be worth as much. He's like, oh, yeah, they look exactly the same. They're basically exactly the same. And that's what we're kind of doing to the rest of the world that's holding the US dollar, is they're like, yeah, we're just printing more of these things. It's like, yeah, you know, that's it's insane. But also to US citizens, anyone who's holding US dollar is getting, you know, is testing the laws of thermodynamics, right? It's like, that's why I know, no matter what someone argues, I cannot believe the bullshit that it doesn't cause inflation, because, you know, the basic laws of thermodynamics, like a closed system, right? If you add more, like, energy is not created or destroyed, right? You have so much value in the system. Money represents value. It doesn't represent, the paper it's printed on isn't worth anything. It's the value it represents. And if you double the amount, the value has to cut in half. I mean, you can kick the can far down the road, but at some point, that's the truth of the equation. It has to be true there. You know, it just drives me nuts. But
there's so much smoke and mirrors, and the best thing we can possibly do is develop a 36-month timeline at a bare minimum of what you think will happen here. You know, everybody, there's so much technical analysis going on where everybody wants, you know, a quick, I want to make my quick money, or I want to do whatever. I want this quick flip in the stock market. What a lot of people don't realize is when you inject all of this money in the economy, what are our stocks denominated in? You know, what is exactly. When you say your Tesla stock is $700, well, you're saying it's dollars. Right. You're not saying it's 700 Satoshis. You know, you're saying there's 700 Ether. You know, you're saying it's $700. And so even though that stock might show that it's 700, what happens if the currency has been doubled in supply? Well, really, it's 350 because it's been diluted. You know,
Right.
it's not, you're seeing an artificially held up figure there. And we've never seen the Fed being able to buy into bonds and everything that they've been doing like over this past year and a half. It's like, this is completely uncharted territory. And it's almost as if I always make this analogy, like, you know, you have this race car in a desert bed and it's, let's say it's a Tesla, you know, and you got the new Roadster or whatever. And you got Jerome Powell in the front seat and Janet Yellen in the passenger seat. And they've been told prior to getting in this car, you know, hey, you know, there's a cliff in front of you. No matter what, there's 100% a cliff in front of you in this car. I'm just letting you know this. You're on this desert bed here in this car, Janet and Jerome. You guys are in this car and there's a cliff in front of you, 100%. And you're driving now. And so they're going 100 miles an hour. And the only difference between then and now is they've pressed down harder on the pedal, on the gas pedal. If I said Tesla, an electric pedal, you know, so essentially all they're doing is going faster now. And they know that there's a cliff in front of them. And so that's my whole logic of what I see in this situation is that you cannot continue to artificially inject money into an economy that is not only, it's artificial in the first place, but the economy is already struggling right now. So you have a rough economy and you're pretending like the economy isn't struggling, but it really is struggling. And then on top of it, you're artificially injecting money into this economy and giving out loans that people don't even need to pay back. You know, this is, I don't know what's going to happen over the next year here, but it doesn't look like it's going to get, you know, better before it gets, it looks like it's going to get worse before it gets any better. And I think your analysis on it is spot on. You know, I really do.
And yeah, and like I said, I mean, the way I look at it is when I sat down like a week ago and I really thought about this and I was like, when they're buying commodities and they're buying bonds and they're just, it's confiscation. They're confiscating the assets because they're making money out of thin air. They're taking something and making it doesn't, they're making something out of thin air and then giving it to you to take an asset, right? That's confiscation. It's not, it's just like if I printed a bunch of funny money and went and bought something in your store, that you'd be like, oh, you just stole from me, right? but if you pass around the funny money, then you're okay because you didn't, someone is going to get stolen from down the chain, right? That's the thing, is like it's just a way, it's like a sleight of hand, like a magician, and they're actually confiscating assets. That's what I see, is the government is now controlling assets, and they didn't actually have to pay for them. It didn't come from taxpayer dollars. It didn't come from a budget. It came from money printed out thin air, which is basically nothing. Like that. So if I have nothing and I take something, that's confiscation. That's theft. So I don't know.
The worst part, you're exactly right. The worst part is when you realize it's okay. Well, we're entrepreneurs, so we're trying to build our asset pool and limit our liability pool. But there's a lot of people that don't understand that now if you're on a wage per month and you're actually getting a salary, well, you actually have a liability on your hands. It's not an asset getting your monthly wage, and now it's turned into a liability. And that's something that it's very hard to wrap your head around. But you go, okay, well, you have an inflationary item like the dollar that is being inflated artificially, but then at the same time is your wage going up to compensate for this inflation. Realistically, wages are in a deflationary situation. So you have wages where somebody might make, you know, $3-4 grand a month. Well, is your wages adjusted to the new supply of dollars in the system here? No, it's usually, if anything, you might get fired or something might happen or your cost of living goes up. So your wages are actually deflationary in contrast to this inflationary pool of dollars out there. And so it's just a very troubling mixture for society to think about what's happening here, because, you know, if you have assets, you know, you might raise your rent that you're building, you know, you might do things to compensate for what's going on with the dilution of the dollar. You know, the price of your real estate might go up in value because there's more dollars in the ecosystem and it's been diluted. But the people that are renting in that building, their wages might be the same.
Right. Yeah.
It's just very scary.
Let's see. We got a comment here I wanted to address. I think this is kind of funny. FP says you can't lose it if you invest all on ETFs. What do you think about that?
You got to do your research on the ETF, because if you look at, say, you look at SLV, for example, something that's very troubling about SLV, and this is a silver ETF. JP Morgan is the custodian who owns the silver. So they basically have the silver in their vaults, and JP Morgan has been caught manipulating the metals market and settled outside of court multiple times for manipulating the metals market, has constantly been scrutinized for their manipulation of metals. I'd recommend anybody to go look into JP Morgan. And so they have all these little fine print things involved in that ETF where they basically say, we can sell silver to pay for management expenses. We can do different things with the silver, and by the way, like Citron has a big position in SLV, and Citron is a notable short seller, Andrew Left's company. So you would imagine that they have that position so that if they ever get caught in a short squeeze, well, they have all the silver in JP Morgan's vault to cover their short position. Because when you get short squeezed on silver, it's a lot different than GameStop or AMC. You actually have to cover with the physical silver.
Yeah.
You have to deliver the goods. And so part of me thinks that these big banks have a position in SLV only to cover their short positions that they are using to manipulate the market in the first place. But there's one ETF, PSLV, when it comes to silver. I'm not as well informed. There's the GLD and that was silver, but with gold. But with silver, the best one I look at personally is PSLV because it's ran by Eric Sprott, who's a very notable person in the silver industry. And it's actually held by the Royal Canadian Bank or the Royal Canadian Mint, I believe. So it's much more, and you can't trade options against it. So that kind of tells you everything. With SLV, you can do whatever you want, really. It's a big circus show over there. You can buy calls, buy puts, whatever you want to do. But with the Sprott Silver Trust, the PSLV, you can't do that same kind of leveraging. So you have to do your research. I think that the comment could be true, but you have to make sure you do your research on which one you're putting your money into and really read the fine print of everything. And that goes for crypto as well. Make sure you read the white papers. Make sure you read the fine print of everything you put your money into.
And I would say that nothing is guaranteed either, right? Like, I think some people think that you could invest all your money into an ETF and there's no way it could go to zero. It could go to zero. It could cut in half at least. That's certainly possible. In fact, the worst case scenario that I see happening is high degree of inflation. So the price goes up in fake dollars, right? So maybe you invest in ETF and price goes up because it's priced in US dollars, and then market crashes and it gets cut in half after doubling in inflation, basically losing half its value, then losing half its value again in dollar value. Because now it's worth what it was before, except the dollar is worth less. And so you think that you haven't made a loss. You think that you've just come back to even, but you haven't come back to even, because when you first held it, whatever ETF, and it could be any ETF, right? S&P 500, any kind of index, you now hold something that has half the value, but it has the same numerical value, which is just, that's, it's so hard, I think, for people to wrap their heads around what inflation actually does and how holding a loan is actually a good thing and all that stuff. But nothing is guaranteed. Like, you could lose your money anywhere.
Holding a loan's a good thing if you know what you're doing with it. Some people, they take a loan and they don't really have you have to turn it into an asset that's cash flowing as fast as possible. Make sure that loan you take doesn't become a liability. And a lot of people in my industry, they take loans and they do the wrong things with it and they have a major liability on their hands. But if you know how to leverage right, it can be the biggest blessing of all time, and that's what these are things I wish I knew. To all the audience members out there that are 18, 19, build your credit up. Learn about it. Don't use it. Just build it up. Make sure you use 33% of whatever your balance is. Pay it off every month. Use 33%. Pay it off. Do that every single month. Build your credit up. This is information they're not teaching you in your school system. So what John's saying right now about being able to leverage and use your credit, it's so true. But you just got to make sure you learn before you do it. But make sure that you actually build that credit up so you have those, the weaponry in your artillery, so to speak, that you can use that later on in life. Because I'm still learning about it to this day. I'm still growing my credit right now, building my company right now. I'm on the journey myself right now. So it's like, I'm not in a position right now where it's like, I've reached success. I'm just getting started myself. And these are all things I wish I knew. I wish I knew that starting out.
By the way, I got a comment on the fake silver bar that you still have on your desk there. That obviously can't. Welcome to YouTube.
There's no way. I really I went all out for this interview, John. I went all out and I just said, you know what, I'm gonna get. I gotta really fake it till I make it over here. I gotta get give me at least a fake silver bar or something over here. Do it, but But yeah, you get the YouTube thing. That's the craziest thing about the internet is it's such a rewarding experience, but you have to get that thick skin. I've had people, come out with conspiracy theories. Well, this guy's from the hedge funds himself. He doesn't like GameStop like us. He must, he doesn't have diamond hands. He's not one of us. We're trying to make our tendies around here with our diamond hands. And I'm like, what is a tendy? Like, what are you guys even talking? Oh, I guess that's a new term for making money or something. All right. But yeah, you have to have thick skin on the YouTube thing. You really do.
Oh yeah. I literally do like an income report every month where I go through my QuickBooks and I show exactly how much money I make from real estate investments, like line by line, my actual QuickBooks for my businesses, for all three of my businesses. And people will comment on the video and they'll be like, he's a scammer. That's bullshit. And I'm like, I just made this fictional entire life. like, how much work it would take to why? So I can, get some views on YouTube. I mean, it's absolutely insanity, but that's YouTube for you. So
you got to be willing to put yourself out there. And I've always was a fan of Jordan Peterson and of a lot of his lectures that he put online. And one of the things he talks about is if you want to grow in something and you want to build a community, well, you have to be willing to risk getting embarrassed. You have to risk someone trying to embarrass you. If you want to learn how to surf, for example, and you look at those waves out there and you're going, I want to learn how to surf. Well, you're going to look like a kook. You're going to go out there. You're going to get just swamped by these waves and you're going to everybody's going to laugh at you. You might get, you see the people doing the walk of shame at the beach. They got to they have to paddle in because they couldn't get out. All the waves just pushed them back in, And so you see people doing the walk of shame and they got to do it over and over and over again. But before you know it, they're surfing because they kept trying and they actually put themselves out there and they're willing to get embarrassed. And so a lot of the YouTube thing and putting yourself out there, especially when you're like yourself or, with me in the precious metals world, there was so many talking hands channels that didn't actually show their face. And so I built the set and then because I built a set and I'm actually in my warehouse right now for Mineral Exchange. And it's like, okay, well, because he built a set, now he's a paid actor. He's an actor now. This is it's all a facade. And it's like, okay, so if I didn't put the time and effort in and I just used my iPhone and I didn't buy a microphone and I didn't copy Joe Rogan's set or whatever, then I would be normal YouTuber. But because you built a set and all this stuff, then now you're a fraud or you're a scammer or whatever it is that they want to say. So it is what it is. They're going to always be trying to get you, John. They're always trying.
That's it. Yeah. But so getting back a little bit to the gold with everything kind of going down today and kind of the long term. So my thinking, and I'm curious on your thoughts on this, like why I bought physical gold was because I said, well, Peter Schiff definitely had some influence on that. I was like, listen to him. I'm like, I disagree with you about Bitcoin, but just in case you're, right in some regard, this is the only.
Oh, he is. Yeah. I don't want to take anything away from Peter Schiff.
Yeah.
I think that I'm a libertarian myself. I agree with a lot of his philosophies of a smaller government. I think more people should agree that, rather than being so divided over whether you're a Democrat or a Republican and all this divide and hate, it's like, what about just having a smaller government that has less power? What about that? And so what he says is philosophy. I'm going to cut you off, but I've always been kind of critical of Peter Schiff just because he's so critical of Bitcoin. And he made a comment on one of my videos when I was a really small channel. I was a really small channel. I only had 900 subscribers or something at the time. And he went out of his way. This big YouTuber goes out of his way to go and comment on my thing. Well, I hope your channel ends up doing better than Bitcoin in the end. And so, but I still love the guy. I really admire him. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going about.
Yeah, Peter. No, I agree with 95% of what he says. I'm libertarian myself as well. But just the Bitcoin bit of it. But he does double down on that on Twitter. He's like, no matter what happens, he's like,
gotta give him credit. Gotta give him credit. He sticks to his guns.
But my strategy, when I started thinking about all these things, I was like, okay, well, what I want to do right now is preserve wealth, right? I don't even care about I'm not trying to figure out what asset is going to go up in real value. I mean, in dollar values, sure. But if I see inflation coming, that's where I was like, okay, if I put my money into physical gold, then even if it doesn't really go up, right? As long as like worst case scenario is it just about stays the same. I mean, I guess we're seeing it go down now, which is surprising, but best case scenario is what happens is that the dollar inflates, and so the value of gold goes up, compensating for that. But it hasn't really gained any true value. It's just preserved my money, right? That's what I'm looking at. Is my whole strategy right now is I want to preserve. I'm sitting on a lot of cash, or I was sitting on cash. I've kind of been putting it places, but I didn't want to be left holding the bag, sitting on a bunch of cash. So where can I put that to preserve it? I don't need to make gains. I just want to make sure it doesn't get diminished if we have a big period of inflation. So what am I thinking right on that? Or do you have other ideas of what to do? Because this is a big question. All my coaching clients ask me this. I've been kind of figuring out, like, investing in business, obviously, but I've been saying, hey, gold makes sense, or silver, right? Precious metals. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, the best thing you could do is use process of elimination of where are the places that you can even park your money in the first place. Well, you have the stock market, you have, cash itself, just having it in a bank. As we've seen with the system being able to be shut down for 3 hours and we're just, out of luck, if you have an excess of 250,000, it's not even FDIC insured. And what does FDIC insured really even mean? Because these banks are capable of going bankrupt. And when they go bankrupt, what do? They come back to the citizens to bail them out, just like they did in 2007. Bank of America goes bankrupt. Well, we have to go bail them out so they never go bankrupt. And then we have a bigger deficit, and so that's the truth of the matter is if you use process of elimination, well, the worst place to put your money would be in dollars, because it's inflating, and that, why would we want to work for money that they can print? And we're not getting anything on our money if we leave it with the bank. We're just giving them a free loan. And so we know the money is not actually there. This isn't a reserve bank where they actually have to store the money in a vault somewhere. It's just we believe the money's there because of this digital number on our screen. So that's the worst possible place to put your money, in my opinion. Of the pool of places to put your money, whether it's cash itself, the stock market, real estate, which you're already in real estate, so you've put the X on that one. And then if you're your own business, you have your own business, so you put the X on that one. It's like, okay, well, I don't have any negative things to say about that. I think it's a great place to put your money into gold. Personally, I like silver a little bit more, mainly because of the new age we're going into with everybody, so big on electric cars and solar panels and everything. But like you said, if I needed to split, I have a couple 10-ounce gold bars over there, and you got almost 40 grand in your pocket, and you can just take off with 40 grand, and it's much easier that way. I'm big on platinum as well. So my two metals that I believe in the most is silver and platinum.
Yeah.
Platinum has a very unique skill set to it, where it's a very high melting point. It takes about 3,000 degrees to melt it. And so of the noble metals, I consider platinum to be the most noble of the metals, because it's the densest. It's literally impossible to fake the metal. Like, you can put tungsten in gold, you can do a couple different things with gold, but if you got it from a notable person that has or you have your own XRF machine where you can test the gold, then you're fine. But platinum is very unique, and it is a store of value in the same way, because you are able to have 100 grand in a small amount of it on the table, and so I would consider looking into platinum, because it has the density where you have the density of your capital in one place, but it also has the rarity to it as well, where this is, we're talking about a market cap in the billions versus a market cap of 10 trillion on gold. And you're also talking about an asset that is somewhere around $1,200 right now per ounce. Now, there's a bigger premium on platinum, but you're still able to store a larger amount of capital in a small place. But I think, whether it's silver, platinum, or gold, it is ridiculously better than holding your money in cash. And gold will always be gold. I think that it'll always be a hedge against inflation, but I would personally have a portfolio of silver, gold, and platinum. And that's where I stay myself.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the reason why I went for gold, not silver, was just because of if I needed the bug type a scenario, I figured, hey, I could basically, like, worst case scenario, have a bunch of physical gold, and then you could go, like, if really things got bad, you could go to a third world country where you could trade that gold and live like a king. And, like, you don't need a lot of money. Well, especially if things get really bad, like, the value of gold could skyrocket, in the sense that, like, everyone's monetary systems have all gone to crap, and the only thing that we can rely on is physical, precious metals, and having that small thing. But I have to look into platinum too, because that's an interesting one.
Look at the 6 month chart on platinum is pretty impressive. It went from about 850 up to 1,200 so far with platinum. So if you look up the 6 month chart on it, I've done pretty well on my platinum position. I went pretty heavy into platinum. My current portfolio is, it's crazy to say this, but nearly 50% of my net worth is in silver, and then platinum. And then, but again, I own Mineral Exchange, so I when I say what I own, it's like a lot of it's under the LLC with Mineral Exchange. So
Right.
I have to say that I have a company in that, but I am kind of holding steady on my positions. I don't really like to sell my silver right now. We're sold out on the website of everything. And it's like, I could put more up there, but I believe in my positions. I kind of want to hold it, you know. It's so a lot of my clients I work with on an individual basis, but it's like, you know, why are you being greedy with your inventory, Rob? It's like, because I like my inventory.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to sell it. We're going to stay steady with this. A lot of companies, they pretend and say we're all out, but I'd say like, hey, I have some, but I like my stuff. It's just because silver's the thing that a lot of people need to realize in physical metals. And if you go to your local coin shops, whatever your city is in, whoever's watching this, you can see silver at a spot price of 26 or wherever it is, but that doesn't mean they want to sell you silver at 26. They're going to add a big premium to it. So it's very interesting to see that the demand is outpacing the supply in a sense where the people who own it, if you see a pullback like today, go to your local coin shop today and see how many of them want to sell you silver at spot. None of them will. They're all going to want a huge premium on it because they can't even replace it for less than 30 an ounce, 31 an ounce. They can't even get it. I mean, people want for American Silver Eagles right now, the premium is, I mean, outrageous. We're talking 38 per 1 ounce Silver Eagle. I've seen at points where the Silver Eagles are double spot price. That's why I would always tell clients, you know, get a 100-ounce bar. You might pay a premium where this is a $3,100 bar or $3,200 bar, but you're not paying 41 an ounce for an American Eagle or 38 an ounce for an American Eagle. It's these premiums is something that people need to take into account because regardless of whatever that spot price says, that's just the paper world. Paper doesn't go into cars. You know, these paper contracts, you can't put it into an electric car. You can't put it into a solar panel. You need the real physical silver. And these companies are starting to get worried because the premiums are through the roof. So these big companies like Sony, like Toshiba, like, you know, Tesla, they're going to want to start buying a lot of physical silver because they don't want to have to pay, you know, the premiums that the market is going to dictate later on in the future. Because at the end of the day, silver is actually 8 times more rare than gold. There's 8 times more gold above ground than silver in bullion form. Now, below ground in the dirt, there's more silver than gold, but actually above ground there's 8 times more gold than silver because the gold is held in vaults, whereas the silver is put in landfills because they're using it for things. I always joke around and say the mining operations of the future are going to be in the landfills because they're going to be digging up old stuff and trying to get the parts out of the semiconductors and everything. But I'd have a little bit more. I would look a little bit into silver, look a little bit into platinum. Those are my top 2 places personally where I park my money, but I also have gold as well. Gold is something that will always be gold. But from an ROI perspective, I think silver might have a better ROI. Whereas gold, like you said, would stay, you know, regardless what gold bought, you know, 50 years ago, it buys about the same thing today, 50 years later. You know, when you think about a house or a car, it buys about the same thing. You know, I make a joke, you know, I used to have this 1968 Firebird 400. And if you bought this car brand new off the showroom floor, you bought a brand new Camaro off the showroom floor in 1968, it would have cost you like $2,000, $3,000, maybe $4,000. And if you had that money, if you had gold or if you had cash and you said, you know what, I'm going to pay you in gold, I'll keep the cash.
Right.
Well, today, what's that $4,000 going to buy you in terms of a car? You know, back in 1968, it bought you a badass, you know, muscle car off the showroom floor, fully decked out, everything you could imagine on this thing. This $4,000 bought you a top of the line car. What are you going to buy today with that? A used Camry or something? Like, what do you, if you're lucky, you know? So but if you had switched that perspective and you gave them the cash and you kept the gold, well, that gold today would be worth somewhere around $50,000-$60,000. So you're thinking it's like, okay, well, then I could go buy a nice Model 3 or something. And that's about the similar situation of, you know, what it used to buy in 1968. So what you said about gold maintaining its value, you're right. It continues to buy what it used to be able to buy. And so regardless of what happens in all the different craziness of the dollar and all the fiat currencies, it'll still continue to be able to buy what it used to buy.
Yeah, that I totally agree. That makes a lot of sense. The only thing, so let me ask you about this. Let me try to give me your honest, the non-salesman spiel, okay? Because I've been trying to get this, and it's like it's so hard because so many people like they're not giving me the straight dope on this. So on the premiums on precious metals, I don't understand why if the premium goes up, it just doesn't make the spot price go up, because if that demand is higher and so the premium is higher, and that, you know, why would there be 2 prices And I've heard like different things, but what I've heard, I'm not buying. Like, what's the real deal behind this? How does this work? And then the question about that is also, that's the one thing is like with buying physical metal that I've had the hesitation is it's like, well, shoot, if I buy this, I better hold it for a long time, because if I'm going to pay a premium, then I'm instantly losing money, like in the value of that asset. What's the real straight deal on this and how that works? And
it's a question I have myself, John. Like I really have that question myself, because I'm talking to the big time dealers. I'm in the wholesale channels, and I'm there's big time broker house, or not broker houses, but dealer houses that basically move billions a year, moving the billions amount of precious metals a year, like the APMEXs and the JM Bullions and stuff like that. And the channels get constrained by the demand, and so they basically, you get in a situation where you might have a day like today where spot price dropped $1, but they're all in their silver at a higher price. So they're not willing to sell their silver, their physical silver, because the spot price had dropped, and they're going, okay, well, we're not selling it for this. We're not taking a big loss. We'd rather just hold our physical silver for right now. So you see a big company that'll say, oh, we're out of silver, but really they have it. They're just not willing to sell it at that price. And if they are willing to sell it, they're going to put a big premium on it to compensate for whether they got in on that silver. That's one case scenario. But the other scenario, in a perfect world, if you have a logical world that's rational, you would have a situation where you couldn't short silver in the way that they're shorting it. You can produce as many short contracts as you want. You can't produce as much physical silver as you want. You can't just print silver, but they can pretty much print their short contracts. So they basically will print major amounts of short contracts to keep that price artificially low. But if more people demand physical silver, eventually they can't hold it down as much as they want to. I mean, right now you would think JP Morgan and these guys would want silver under 20. They would want it to be way held down where it used to be, but they haven't been able to keep it that far down. If you really look at silver's chart over the past, few years, I mean, we're talking of it being in the mid-teens, low teens, and then now it's up to, almost to 30. It's at 26, hovering between 25 to 30 in this range for a little bit. It's actually up pretty well for an asset. It's outperformed. I believe it was the top performing of the assets in 2020, with Bitcoin the only thing ahead of silver. Silver was number 2, and then silver was number 2. Bitcoin was number 1 of the top performing assets of 2020. I could be corrected on that, but I believe that it was in the top 3 assets, or let's say it was silver. I think that it's false manipulation from big banks. I think that there's a very similar thing going on to them trying to short GameStop into oblivion, but they have been doing this with physical silver for a very long time, and they've been artificially holding the price down. The other thing is, if you're the Fed or if you're one of these banks and you have been getting away with printing money at will, do you want the price of gold to be where it should be? Do you want people to do you really want that? I mean, let's think about their perspective of where they're at. They want to be able to get away with what they've been getting away with. They want to keep this going. Exactly. And we see that just through their actions. They want to keep kicking that can down the road. So, I mean, I don't mean to dance in circles around the question, because it's a question I have myself, because silver should be, 100 an ounce. Gold should be well over 5,000 an ounce. If you went back 5 years to when I was first starting in precious metals, and you go, hey, Rob, the whole world's going to be shut down. You're not even going to be able to go out to restaurants and stuff like that for a very long time, almost a whole year. And they're going to print, gold and silver's entire market cap in a year and a half. The first thing I would say to my future self in that situation, if this is 5 years, I'd be like, so gold's, 10,000 an ounce, right?
Right, exactly.
Oh, no. It went and broke over 2,100 for a little bit, but it pulled back and it's just sitting, 17, 1,800. And it's like, what? What are you talking about? How is that possible? They printed how much money? Where the whole world was shut. This is the perfect storm for precious metals. Exactly. Silver's 100 at least, right? No, silver. I mean, it went up a little bit, but it's at 26, 27 range, and it's like it down is up is down. It doesn't make any sense, and so that goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of this. It's like you have to be able to put together your thesis, make a 36-month thesis, and stick to it. The people that get it reminds me of the days when I was like in options contracts. I ended up making a good amount of money in options contracts on Tesla. I bought long-term calls, but you can only do up to a few years in call contracts, and I was foolish and only did 1 year, and so I sold mine too early. But if I had just bought with conviction and stuck to a thesis that entire time, instead of going, oh wow, it's up 10 grand today, oh it's down 10 grand today, oh it's like all this leverage through I'm sure about the options world. if I had just went, and all the people that were like, dancing around Tesla when it was 200 to 300, 200 to 300, everybody, I don't know, it's fallen to 200 from 300. It went up, what, 10x from there, 15x from there. You should have just sat on your hands. The most money you can make, it's like I think it's a Jesse Livermore quote where he's like, of all of the money I've made in the stock market, the big money was made by sitting on my hands. Something along those lines is the quote. The big money, the real millions and the easiest millions and the biggest money I ever made is just sitting on my hands and staying put with a long-term thesis. So that's really what I would want to, and that kind of goes back to what you're preaching about the people saying, I'm all in Bitcoin, to the moon. It's like, well, study first, and develop your thesis and then stick to that thesis. Now, if you have a $10,000 net worth and you want to put some money somewhere, maybe put $1,000 in Bitcoin, maybe put $1,000 in gold, maybe put $1,000 in silver, but that remaining 7,000, study and learn what you're doing with that, and then stick to those positions and don't be trying to do the technical analysis of the day-to-day, because that's where you kind of can lose your mind. And in the precious metals world with that question, it's like, I question it every single day. How can the market be this manipulated and this falsely suppressed? I mean, it's actually, it's in my opinion, it's like criminal. It's crazy that the price has been able to be this suppressed for this long. The interesting aspect of Bitcoin is, if you see more and more institutions converting their treasuries into Bitcoin, then they can actually have a major effect on the monetary system. The individual retail investors, we might in a pool have a bit of effect, but when you see a company like Tesla converting 10% of its treasury into Bitcoin, I mean, what happens if they say they're buying a bunch of Ethereum? What happens if they say they're buying a bunch of, because they have, $15 billion in their treasury. So they converted roughly 10% of their treasury into Bitcoin. And ironically enough, I don't know how much they're up right now. I think they're still up a bit, but at one point they were up more money on their Bitcoin position than they had produced in cars.
Yeah,
so it's
were,
like,
at one point,
how wild is that? And so you think about, and then you think about Michael Saylor's company. It's I think it's what is it, Micro Solutions. He bought, I think they're at 4.5 billion worth of Bitcoin at this point. So if you see more and more companies, and this is what I'm looking for with Ethereum, because I do buy that it is very valuable, especially if Raoul Pal is talking so well about it, because he's a very intelligent guy, this Raoul Pal.
Exactly.
If these are, I bounce information by listening to guys like Chamath Palihapitiya and looking at their resume and going, okay, let's see how do these guys really perform over the past 10 years. What was their real performance here? What was their ROI? And you look at a guy like Chamath, Chamath Palihapitiya, and it's like home run, home run, home run, home run. This guy just does nothing but he's Babe Ruth. He just hits grand slam after grand slam, hits out Amazon, Facebook, Tesla. It's like, gee, okay, all right, man, I'll listen to you. All right. But you look at a guy like Jim Chanos or something, or, they're right once every 12 years. And then they're boasting and bragging about it. But you want to look at the person's resume. You look at Raoul Pal, he's chilling in the Cayman Islands. He's been winning so much. He's just like, yeah, I'm just going to post up here and I'm going to put 98% of my net worth on cryptocurrency. It's like, what? Okay, that's interesting. So but when it comes to Ethereum and it comes to the other altcoins, I want to see more adoption. I want to see more headlines, like when Tesla put 1.5 billion in Bitcoin and Michael Saylor put billions into Bitcoin. I'm going, okay, well, that's interesting. And you hear like Kathy Wood is another person. She pranced onto CNBC's set and everybody's going, oh, short Tesla. Tesla's going to fail. And she's like, we think it's going to 4,000. And just smiles at all of them. And it's like, what? Like, that's wild. And then it turns out she was right, And so you listen to these types of people that, it takes a lot of the courage. Kathy Wood had a lot of courage and she got a lot of pullback for that. And she ended up being right. And that goes to tell you, don't listen to the people trying to bring you down. Stick to your gut and stick to your thesis. And that's what she did. And she reap the rewards for that. She called out Tesla when it was like 300 prior to the stock split, going to 4,000. I mean, could you imagine going on to like a CNBC and actually putting that kind of a price projection on something? It's like, you're wild. You put a 15x or what, a 12 to 15x price projection on this stock, and it turns out she's right. And so it's like, wow. And so I'm going to listen to what she says. She calls for a $500,000 Bitcoin. She calls for the situations like the Fed being shut down for 3 hours, that only drives more traffic into Bitcoin. They brought up the CBDC thing with her. What happens if these central banks make their own digital currencies? Well, we think that it's going to do this. Is what Kathy says. She goes, we think that's going to drive more people into Bitcoin because they don't want to be part of a CBDC. They're going to want to be part of a decentralized currency like that. I want to see more adoption in the crypto space. So far, I've seen the institutions piling into Bitcoin. I want to see them starting to pile into Ethereum, or better yet, big companies like an Amazon or some large company out there using the smart contracts to their benefit and like actually using it in a real world situation. I might not be an early adopter on Ethereum and the other altcoins, but I would rather wait until they have some sort of adoption before I pile my assets into there. That's how I feel about them, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think that's a sensible position. It makes sense. I think it's the future. I see smart contracts distributed. I mean, we are at a point now where censorship is the biggest problem to the intellectual advancement of society, right? At this point, right? It's clear. Like big tech has said, yeah, we're cool with Fahrenheit 451. This is the world we live in. Like censoring, pulling platforms off, pulling Parler off, like all this stuff, whether you agree or not, whatever. I mean, and so that's why decentralized systems, like even if you think about it, like decentralized social media networks, decentralized contracts, like you can't trust anyone. You can't trust, because hey, look what happened as soon as Trump got out of office. They shut down his bank accounts. I mean, what? Like they shut down his bank accounts. I mean, whether you like him or not, come on, like
Yeah,
that's a scary world that we live in. But if we live in a decentralized finance world, if we live in a decentralized news and social media world, you can't do any of that stuff. Like it's impossible to and I think that's we have to head that direction. So yeah, that's kind of my
absolutely.
again the long-term bet, and which is kind of funny because someone in the chat said diamond hands, and what we're talking about is is not diamond hands. Diamond hands is stupidity. Diamond hands
Yeah.
is like as stupid
Ironically
as you
enough,
can get.
diamonds have been a terrible investment for the history of time. It's so
Thanks to the
ironic. Like
bears,
you could have chose platinum hands. It's up, like 80%. No, it's like 60% up or whatever, in the past 6 months. It's going up 10% a month right now. Maybe platinum hands would be the better choice, because the diamonds really lose their value pretty bad. I mean, it's a real bad joke. You see people come into, trying to get money for their diamonds that they spent on their wedding rings and whatnot. And it's like, okay, well, it's not worth that. I know you paid 30 grand for it, but I'm telling you, it's only worth, it's a $2,000 stone in there.
Campaign. Yeah.
Diamonds it's a whole spiel about diamonds, but it cracks me up that they use the term diamond hands. It's like, well,
I think
maybe you
it's
should
tough
use,
because it's strong. That's why.
yeah,
Like your hands
but
are diamond, they're strong.
yeah. But
Them.
I like to think of it as diamond hands because somebody's holding a diamond in the center of their hands, and there's another person that's a big whale trying to grab the diamond like it's Indiana Jones and split with it. I think that's a situation we have. There's people that are like the whales of the Dogecoin. That's why Elon Musk said, hey, if the whales sell their positions, I'll buy more Dogecoin. You see a lot of the situations where somebody, if people want a quick buck, if you have a large audience of people going, to the moon, we're going to make a fortune off of this. Usually they want to sell. They want to, in order to make a profit and claim your profit, well, you have to sell to claim the profit. Yeah. Just like today, I might say I'm down money on silver today, but if I don't sell my silver position, I'm not down. I haven't declared that gain unless Yellen decides to go through with what she's talking about. You don't make money and you don't lose money unless you declare that gain or that loss and make the sale. And so to the crowd that wants to pump something, I applaud what they did in GameStop. I think that was beautiful. Yeah. I think that in the long term of it, though, you're playing professional poker, and I bet you these hedge funds have made a bloody fortune off of the volatility.
You caught them by surprise, and then they said, "Oh, hey, we could play this game. This is fun. Thank you for giving us this opportunity." Because any volatility gives them opportunity, right? It's like, but yeah, I don't mean to pick on guiding light here, but I just want to make the point that what Rob and I are saying, because Rob was talking about a 36-month plan. That's like sticking to your plan. Like
it could be diamond hands. I mean, if he means it like that, he could be diamond hands.
If he means it like that. But most of the diamond hands guys, they're like, oh, I'm jumping in this bandwagon and I'm not using new information. I'm just holding on. Like, don't be a chicken. Just hold on, diamond hands. And it was the stupidest thing ever when all these people lost all this money at GameStop, because the smart thing would be to reassess the situation. Even if you have a 36-month plan, like at some point, you can't just be completely diamond hands. You've got to be like, okay, well, when I did complex options trading, right? Because I used to trade condors, iron condors and stuff like that. I'd always have an exit plan and an adjustment plan, right? So if I had an iron condor on the S&P 500, there were certain conditions. I was like, okay, well, if it drops down to this level, then I have to roll these options forward in order to preserve the deal. And then there's some options where I'm like, okay, you just cut the deal because you have a 90% chance of loss at this point. And you're always like looking at the delta on it. And it's like, to just like hold on to an asset with no regard for what is happening is like sticking your head in the sand. I don't know. That's my spiel on the diamond hands, but
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. I mean, it goes back to that whole thing of like, there is no better path than the straight and narrow. You know, whatever you think is the easy way to make money is usually the wrong way to make money. You want to be able to build something. You know, there's so many people that the whole economy is on this artificial playing ground right now where we're not building stuff. We're just injecting fake money into the ecosystem, where we're doing these, everybody wants to be a trader and make money quick in the stock market, but what are we really producing right now? What's really going on? Are these people making content at least to put online? Are you making some sort of product or service? Like, what are you doing right now? And there's so many people that are just piling money in the stock market, they don't even realize that the monetary instrument that they're using to buy their stocks is diluted. So
exactly.
it's such a wild game, and it's so scary. If you have a 401k or you got an IRA and your money's locked into the stock market, well, it's equivalent to somebody at a bar saying, you know, you have a shot of vodka and you're like, I want more vodka. You know, I would like more vodka. And someone gets a gallon of water and just pours a bunch of water in your vodka. And it's like, okay, you got more vodka. It's like, no, I don't. You gave me a gallon of water. What is this? You want me to pay you for a gallon of water right now? Like, no, it's going to be $1,000 for a gallon of vodka. It's like, no, you put water in this is not vodka. You know, what'd you do here? And that's what I would equate to the stock market right now is like, we have diluted the dollar so much that even if your stocks are up, you have to know where to park that money, and going into gold or going into precious metal, silver, platinum, going into Bitcoin, things that are more finite. You know, Bitcoin is ultimately finite, but platinum and gold and silver, these are all, you know, close to finite. You have to still mine it, and there is labor involved, intrinsic value involved in this. I always equate it to how much labor was involved in running a printing press. Now it's even worse than that. When we say they printed money, they just digitally poofed this money into the society. They didn't actually, you know, work for it. You didn't have computers, you know, in this warehouse doing a mining operation to mine these Bitcoins. There's a lot of labor involved there. The cost of the computers, the time the computers took to make this Bitcoin, whereas they just go poof overnight, here's more money into the boom, right into the system. You know, you have to look at, was there labor involved? What is money in the first place? Money should be something that is hard to get and something that is desired by many. You know, it's like it has those two mediums to it, and I just don't see it with the dollar anymore by the way that they're printing it. And it's only a matter of time before we go through a cashless society. I mean, even if they had merit and they had values where they would, you know, back the dollar to something, and we didn't have the system that we have in this big fiat currency bubble that we're in right now, you would know that it's like, well, what are our coins right now? I could pull out an old St. Gaudens gold dollar or gold $20 piece, and I could pull out an old, you know, Morgan silver dollar. These were metals that our money was gold and silver. But now when we get a Sacagawea dollar, this isn't even plated in real gold. It's not even fake plated gold. It's completely fake. It's a fake. Our quarters that used to be made out of silver are made out of, you know, cobalt and weird metals and whatnot. You know, it's clad. It's like, this is monopoly money. You know, our $100 bills, if they wanted us to have money outside of the system and to have a Bitcoin of money in a sense, and they wanted money outside of the system, well, I have an old $500 bill in my safe over here, old notes that are $500 bills, $1,000 bills. Why'd they get rid of those? Wouldn't that be valuable today? Wouldn't a rapper or something want to hold $1 million to their head and $100,000 bills instead of all these hundreds? You know, what's up with all these hundreds with this cute little plastic strip and the colored blue and everything? It's like they even modeled it the same colors as monopoly money. I mean, how foolish are we? Our $5 bills are red, you know, the tens are orange, you know, it's like the blues are hundreds. It's like, I don't know, it's crazy. We're playing with monopoly money. We're going towards a digital age regardless, and the question becomes, do you want to be in a digital age where it is the Fed that is in control of the money, or do you want to go into a digital age of, you know, a republic of the money in a sense where the people have the power? You know, the people have the power, the people have the money.
Yeah, I mean, not even I mean, the people, in the sense that it's the invisible hand, right? It's the market that should be defining what the value of any monetary system, what money is. And what you said kind of leads right into one of the things I wanted to kind of dive into about what you said before, because there's two things that I think you said that people might not understand. And one of them was that the government is suppressing the value of gold, and then also that JP Morgan is suppressing the value of silver, and why, right? So for gold, I wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit first, in the sense that, because what you just said about the monopoly money and how the coins used to be made out of real material, if gold was at its actual real value price, then I could easily take that gold and I could take it to a monetary system that's more stable, that hasn't inflated, and then I could exchange it for that currency, and then I would be removing dollars from the US into whatever other currency. But as long as they keep that gold down, then there's no point in me doing that, because I'm going to trade back the gold for US dollars, its price in US dollars. But keeping that parity, that's why it's so critical. At least that's my understanding of it. I don't know if you have a different understanding of why they would want to suppress the gold prices, but
it really comes down to, what reward would you have in that position to have to have gold be very valuable? What would you stand to benefit? Do you benefit more from the dollar? Somehow the dollar index somehow manages to hold up. Let me check the dollar index right now. It makes no sense to me how high the dollar index is right now.
I know it's going up now. Well, it's because the 10-year Treasury yield.
It's up 59 cents today. It just blows my mind. The dollar index almost at 91. And
right.
So you just go, okay, well, you printed a ridiculous amount of money. You diluted the system dramatically. Right. The problem that we're in right now, and this would be the bull case for gold in my mind, is they get away with it because we are the cleanest shirt in the dirty hampers of fiat currency. Of all of the fiat currencies, got to remember all these the yen, the euro, all these currencies are fiat currencies. So the dollar is just the cleanest of the dirty fiat currencies, and so it's the cleanest shirt in the dirty hamper, as a lot of us say in the precious metals industry. But what happens if, one of these superpowers decides to back their money to gold and come out with a cryptocurrency that is back to gold, so to speak? I've been critical of a gold-backed cryptocurrency, but I would imagine, people want to compete to be the reserve currency of the world. Yeah. I would imagine one of these superpowers wanting to do something about that. And who has a lot of gold? These superpowers out there, other than the United States, have a lot of gold. So if you look into, nobody really knows. The thing about China is it's basically like playing poker. If you play Texas Hold'em and the US has to show their cards, right? And go, these are my cards. I got Queen Deuce offsuit right here. Here they are. Here's my cards. And meanwhile, the Chinese have aces over there, just looking at aces, and they're like, we're not showing you.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, we'll just do what we want when we want. We don't have to go through any House of Representatives. We don't have to go through any Senate. We just do it. We don't have to ask any. We just do it. And by the way, we have aces and they're down. We're not showing you that we have aces, but we have them. They're here and they're facing down on the table. And then meanwhile, we're like, here's our cards. Here's what we're doing right now. This is it right here. Here you go. These are. It's like, well, crap. I don't want to be in that situation. That's a rough predicament there. So I would imagine that there is going to be some sort of, grab to want to be a reserve currency, to be the reserve currency of the world. There's going to be some sort of, now does Bitcoin win that race and make it decentralized? That would be a pretty elegant world. I think if the world went to what's very interesting to me is if a company like Tesla puts 1.5 billion into Bitcoin, you essentially just poofed 1.5 billion out of the fiat currency bubble and into a new thing. Like that money just went poof. Just like Poof Powell would put the money poofed into the system, you poofed it out of the system, So if more of that happens to the tune of trillions of dollars go in, obviously, Bitcoin's almost at $1 trillion, market cap, actually jumped over $1 trillion for a little bit. But if you see more and more trillions going into Bitcoin, like Cathie Wood said recently, you would see, the monetary system being rewritten. If you move that money, if 13 trillion moves into Bitcoin, say, which would be, that would make a 500 and some odd $1,000 Bitcoin, because it'd go up like over 10x to do that. Well, then you'd see, the 13 trillion that was printed just moved into somewhere else. And now it's not in dollars anymore. It's in Bitcoin. The dollars that were printed just got poofed away. So something like that, the powers that be would not want to see that happen, obviously, and so that goes back to the gold and silver situation as well. It's the same situation, except they don't have as much control excuse me, of the silver market or Bitcoin. They have a little bit more control of gold because it's in their vaults right now. But if they don't have control of what another superpower decides to do with their gold. And so that could really raise the price of gold as well. It's just one of my kind of weird theories that I have, that another country could put a value on gold and say that it's more valuable than the US does, so to speak.
Yeah. Or I mean, they could price something. I mean, imagine if like barrels of oil stopped being priced in US dollars, but they started being priced in gold because they're like, hey, you guys are fucking with the money. We don't like that anymore. We're not going to take US dollars. We want gold for the oil. You know what I mean? I mean, that's less likely to happen now that we became the biggest producer of oil. But before, we were technically over a barrel. But that could happen with other things, or yeah, I think there's a real danger of messing with. But it just goes to show you that fiat currency is, I mean, the days are numbered on that at this point. So the biggest problem I think is the problem of the scaling. So imagine, okay, if Bitcoin right now, if it did not have a transaction limit, like a throughput limit, right? Because the problem with any distributed network is that now, in order for the way that the system works, is that it takes a long time and there's limited bandwidth in order to move money. But imagine if you had a Bitcoin that you could do transactions as fast as you could do a credit card transaction, it'd already be game over. There would be no fiat currency. No one would want fiat currency. They would only want that. So there's one little technological hurdle that's keeping us from $1 million Bitcoin, right? Like it's you know what I'm saying? It's like that's the one thing that otherwise they would already be game over. At least that's how I see it. But
and that shows that you've done your research on it as well, because a lot of people, they don't understand that the Bitcoin is more of a store of value than it is about transactions. You can do larger transactions. Like if I wanted to move this, $3,200 bar in Bitcoin, it would make sense to take Bitcoin for it because it's just it's a bigger transaction. But to buy your coffee with Bitcoin and you're paying $1.50 or whatever to just move the Bitcoin to the coffee shop, and it takes, 3 minutes to get confirmed to their chain, or it might even take an hour if you're doing that small of a transaction. Depending on how much you want to pay to the network to move that Bitcoin. That's where, the Litecoin and the different coins out there come in Ethereum, they come out and they are able to serve as the day-to-day transactions of coins. But Bitcoin, what I think is very interesting about it is what Michael Saylor's been talking about, and this is what made me be even more bullish about Bitcoin, is say I wanted to store my silver. Well, in a small sense, I can put it in my own safe and I control my silver. But if I want to put it to a depository or something like that, well, I have to pay them an interest rate per year to store my money. So you have to actually, a reserve bank, which is far different than the commercial banks that we have, they would charge you because they're taking on your liability of storing that money. So they charge you 2% a year. Like if you buy Grayscale, for example, in Bitcoin, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, they charge you 2% a year for their cost of holding the Bitcoin. So you're paying regardless, in 10 years, you're going to pay them 10%, or no, you're going to pay them in 5 years, you're going to pay them 10%. Yeah. So in 10 years, you're going to pay them 20%, for holding their Bitcoin. Now, obviously Bitcoin grew a lot, so it was worth it. But the interesting part about Bitcoin is if you know how to store it on a hard wallet and you store your Bitcoin there, well, how do the rich get super rich? Well, they buy a corner in New York, they buy a street corner in New York, and they never sell it. And they just keep passing it down, and they make cash flow off of that asset, and they never declare the gain. They just either 1031 the money forward, or they just keep passing down the asset. And with Bitcoin, you can leverage against your Bitcoin position.
Exactly.
So people might essentially start taking loans against the Bitcoin position, and that loan might be a loan into Litecoin, or that might be a loan into a smaller currency of a sort. Maybe it's in the dollar or whatever it is at that time. You want a loan, and you take a percentage loan at maybe 4%, 5% a year against your Bitcoin position. Maybe even less than that if you have a really good credit line. So people are going to store their Bitcoin like they're storing their assets. And so it's not the perfect coin. If you've obviously done your research, John, it's not the perfect coin for day-to-day transactions, but it is the perfect coin when it comes to storing your wealth in a digital ether. In the digital realm, there is no better way to store your money than into Bitcoin. If you're putting the boundaries on how do I store my money into a digital realm, well, there wouldn't be a better digital storage of wealth than Bitcoin. That being said, these other altcoins, and I don't really consider Ethereum an altcoin because it's got quite a bit of a market cap. I mean, between Bitcoin and Ethereum, you're talking 95% of the entire cryptocurrency market cap. It just really
Exactly.
puts it into perspective how big those two are. And then you got Litecoin. It's like, so I mean, the altcoins, the small altcoins like the Dogecoins are a little sliver of like 1 to 4% of nothing on the overall cryptocurrency market cap. But of them all, I'm really focused on Bitcoin right now until I see more adoption. But I really do think Ethereum has a strong future, and I'd love to see some big companies start to adopt it, because we do need, if we're going into the cryptocurrency age, we need one of them to be the crypto that we buy our coffee with. You know, we need one like that.
And that's got the potential with the kind of that they're solving some of those problems, you know, in the transaction fees and then the speed of transaction. I think that if that becomes, and it has to be solved, there's so many minds that are working on that problem. You know, yeah, you have to trade off some level of trust, but you know, insurance has done that for a long time, right? It's like, maybe you end up with a scenario where you have nodes, we have a smaller number of nodes that are super trusted nodes that are backed by insurance policies on each other or something like that, where you have some way of confirming transactions without having it go through the whole system, because you have these super trusted nodes or something, and you use a rating system. It's like, you know, there's 99.9999% of the time this node has never tried to pull any bullshit, so we can you know, I don't know, there's scenarios, there's ways that it could be figured out. There's a lot of geniuses that are working on it, so I'm not going to try and solve the problem here, but yeah. So the other thing I was going to ask, oh well, okay, let me get your point on see the hard wallet thing, because I saw you do the reviews on the hard wallet, you keep on talking about it. I have a wallet on my phone now. My phone is an iPhone, right? So if I had an Android phone, I would be more concerned. But when people say, "Oh, you need to have a hard wallet that's disconnected," you know, a cold wallet that's disconnected from the internet, because you could get hacked and lose your account. I think an iPhone with a wallet on it is sufficient, because no one's going to be hacking I mean, I could lose my iPhone, but I got the passphrase memorized, right? It's like no one's going to be able to hack my iPhone, right? Unless I'm missing something. I don't know. Like, you know, just
I mean, I could tell you my opinion on it is, if you're in a small amount of Bitcoin or something, I mean, it's not going to be that big of an issue. But if you're looking to store some real, I mean, honestly, I don't know if you're storing enough Bitcoin to look at $200 as not that big of a percentage of the amount of Bitcoin that you're storing, it's in your best interest to have a hard wallet, to have a cold storage, because the whole rationale behind not having it on your phone is your phone is connected to the internet 24. So whatever is plugged in, whatever it's on, it's connected to the internet. So in the crazy scenario that some sort of hacker is able to breach into your iPhone, well, you get the opportunity. Like, if you believe in Murphy's Law, for example, Murphy's Law is, if it can't happen, it will happen. You are letting the possibility in the realm of possibilities, even if the possibility is marginal, in the realm of possibilities, it is there, that rather than cutting off that possibility indefinitely, that possibility is there to breach into the wallet on your phone. Whereas if you stored your seed phrase, also when you start a hard wallet, you get the seed phrase, and so you can memorize, you own your keys. So it's off of the exchange, it's off, nobody controls of it. Just like Robinhood, you know, your money's on their exchange, they have control of the money right there, and they tell people what you're doing with your money. Well, if you have your money off of the exchange, now you actually are a reserve bank, you actually own your Bitcoin. So I would recommend getting a hard wallet, whether it's a Trezor, whether it's a Kobo wallet. I think those are the top two. I really like those two, and that's from me actually testing them out. I don't have anything to do with those companies. I really like the Trezor and the Kobo wallet so far. But it is very unique to be able to store your money completely and the term cold storage comes from, it's not connected to any kind of electronics at all. It's just completely off of the grid. It is not turned on, and you choose when to turn your wallet on. And so it just basically, even though the possibility of being hacked is marginal, if you have, you know, full Bitcoins, you know, or full ether, you know, if you want to have that extra level of storage. Now, if you just have $20, $100, $200, and it's like, okay, what am I going to do? Spend my entire investment on a hard wallet? Then I understand that situation there. But if we're putting tens of thousands of dollars in there, or hundreds of thousands of dollars, or even millions, it's like, well, you're going to want cold storage. I mean, I wish that, I'm sure he'll never talk about it, but I wonder if Raoul Pal or Michael Saylor would ever talk about how they store their Bitcoin. You know, the guys who have the billions. You know.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. See, because I'm still not convinced on the case of the hard wallet, and I'll tell you why. Because what you said makes sense, except that it's a trade-off to me, and this is what I was thinking about. But I could be convinced otherwise. But my trade-off is this, and there's guys in the chat that are going to try and convince me as well. So I hope you guys do, because I want to know, But this is a trade-off that I've had. So I agree with, it's connected to the network. I still don't feel like anyone's really going to hack my iPhone. And I have an open source software that I'm using for the wallet, so I feel like that's safe. But I feel like the like my phone is on me all the time. A hardware wallet is like okay, so when I bought physical gold, I was like, fuck, where do I put this? Right, like that was the first problem. I was like, shit, like I can't put it in an obvious place, and I was like, I can't buy a safe. Right, if I buy a safe, it has to be big enough that it can't be moved. Like if you buy a little safe, then you just made it super convenient. Like here's where the valuable thing is, and here you can just pick this one thing up and go. Right, it's like it has to be bolted to the floor. I was like, shit. Right, so I was like, okay, it has to, like, there's, again, I'm not going to talk too much about what I did with physical gold, but my point is, like, it's the same exact problem with a hard wallet. Is it's like I'm not carrying that with me all the time, unless you are, like, maybe if you put it with your phone. But to me, I was like, the trade-off is this thing is never leaving my sight. Like a phone is never leaving your sight. Like you always have the phone. Whereas the hardware wallet, it's like, well, shit, what if you have it somewhere secured in your house, and you go to the store someday, and then your house fucking burns down, or like you get kidnapped or something, what I mean? It's like you don't have access to that hard wallet. So that's my conundrum, is like, yeah, I agree, it's more secure, but I feel like having, again, I could be totally wrong here, but I feel like having your wallet on your iPhone is like 99% secure, and the hard wallet's like 99.5, and so for that 0.5, the risk of like not having it with me at all times is higher than the risk of that 0.5. But again, I could be totally wrong here, but I'm open to be convinced otherwise.
Yeah, I think the solution, and you bring up a really interesting point, when it comes to the storage of money in the digital realm, it may be the best solution here would be to have a hard wallet for the 90% of your crypto, whereas 10% that you want access to on a day-to-day basis, you have on your phone or something like that. But if you really go, okay, I have 5 Bitcoin and I don't need 5 Bitcoin on my phone, I maybe only need 1 Bitcoin on my phone to use for whatever I'm doing, or maybe in a quarter of a Bitcoin or a tenth of a Bitcoin. Maybe I put the majority of my Bitcoin on this hard wallet. I memorize my seed phrase and I put a pin on the hard wallet, and then this goes into some safety deposit box, but I don't even put my seed phrase in the safety deposit box, just the hard wallet. Because you got to remember, if you lose your hard wallet and you memorize your seed phrase, you have, technically, even no matter where your hard wallet is, if you've memorized your seed phrase, you have access to your money. You have full control of your money.
So why even have a hard wallet? Just memorize your seed phrase, and then you've got no liability carries with you all the time,
to send and receive, and it puts out new wallet addresses so you can receive Bitcoin when you have the hard wallet.
Yeah, but
you have access to it.
I'm not planning on sending and receiving, right? It's like I'm like the same thing with the phone. It's like I don't need to have the phone to send and receive, because I mean, if I need to, I could instantiate a wallet and then do it. But in general, I'm not concerned about that. Like for the long haul, right? Because when I think of like a hard wallet, I'm thinking like for the long haul, and the same thing. Why not have the hard wallet on or just have my phone? And then someone in the chat said, well, you could lose your phone. It's like, yeah, but if you lose your phone, what happens? It remote deletes at this point, your iPhone, right? Like no one can get into your iPhone, so
the best thing I could say is like, play with it, buy one of the hard wallets, play with it, send some money to it, see how easy it is to use, just play with it a little bit and see, send $5 to one of them, see how fast it moves, see how it worked, just kind of understand. Because with me, I actually carry one of my treasures around. I have what do I have now? 5 different hard wallets or 7 different hard wallets. I have a few more coming in. So I play with them, and I actually the reason I'm playing with them is because I plan to do a review on all the different hard wallets.
Right.
And so a lot of companies are starting to send me these hard wallets now. And so I'm actually playing with them and learning how they work. And I'm very impressed with how easy it is to learn. And once you do learn, it's like riding a bike and you go, oh, wow, I totally get this now. It makes a lot of sense, and when it gives you the seed phrase and all this stuff, it's a very elegant solution to storing it into the cold world of the digital world, which basically means there's no electronics turned on to this. And it basically makes it, I guess you got to put that sliver of possibility. Like this is a point they call gold like 99999 fine because there's that one possible fluke of a weird metal going in there, and so there's like the 9999 or 99.999999 whatever percentage that a hard wallet is effective. But I like the idea that this hard wallet is a kind of old piece of technology, whereas it doesn't have a Wi-Fi enabled to it. It can't connect to the internet. There is no possibility of anybody just turning on your wallet remotely. The only way you can access that hard wallet is when you plug it in. And then for that temporary period of time that it's plugged into your computer, now it has access to the internet and has the access to send and receive money. And then as soon as you detach that, now that hard wallet is stored somewhere. And if you've memorized your seed phrase, you can just, that wallet doesn't even matter anymore. If you break that wallet, if you throw it in a pool, well, then you could just get another wallet and put your seed phrase into this new wallet. And now, boom, now you have your Bitcoin in a new wallet. You can memorize your seed phrase from a hard wallet. And I believe even in the wallets on your phone, if you've memorized your seed phrase from a hard wallet, you can then inject that into your phone, and you can even use your seed phrase into your phone. So that's a very powerful tool. So I think that there's a place for both of them. And I think if you want easy access, if you do get to a world like you're talking about where we purchase our coffee with our cryptocurrency, whether there's a Litecoin or an Ethereum that works perfect for that, then it makes sense to have it on your everyday device, and you don't need to carry an extra device on you and plug that into your computer and send it to the wall. It makes sense to just be able to go boop. And so maybe there's a situation where you keep the majority of your funds on a hard wallet, but you put a little bit onto your phone in addition to that, just for the extra, sometimes like for me, I have, what do I have? 6 safes. So I only really need a couple of them, but I have 6 of them just because I'm an OCD freak, it is what it is, so with the hard wallets, it's the same thing. I only need one. You don't need, it's like, Rob, you don't need 10 of these hard wallets. It's like, no, I like playing with it. I don't know. Like I want one there. I want one there. I want another one there. I want to store my Ethereum on this specific wallet and my Bitcoin on this one. It's like, I want it all spread out because it's like my little Dragon Balls, I call it like when I was a kid, I love that Dragon Ball Z. It's like, I'm going to have 9 different hard wallets and disperse them throughout the land, but it's an extra overkill, but when it comes to protecting your money, it's like, how overkill can you get? Is there overkill when it comes to protecting your money? I personally trust, I would rather have my money in a hard wallet, but I do understand your argument of wanting just easy access to it and having it on your phone. And an iPhone is harder to hack into. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is a publicly traded company that is, that's what I get worried about with Coinbase right now. If they IPO, the regulations that are imposed on Coinbase is heavy. So you might want to switch over to a Gemini or a Binance or whatever it might be instead of using Coinbase, because Coinbase, and the other thing about Cash App, they're really turning into a bank, because Cash App, I was lucky enough to buy a Bitcoin on Cash App in the very early times. And so my Bitcoin is just stuck on Cash App because they only allow you to take 5,000 out a week. And so it's like, okay, it's like, what they made it a funnel. You made it a funnel. I'm like, Jack, you tricky guy, what the heck, Jack?
But you agreed to it, I guess.
I mean, I got lucky. Got super lucky that one of the first Bitcoins I bought when it was under 10,000 was on Cash App. And so it's like, it's been on I think it's down to like 22,000 now, but every week I've been taking 5,000 out, and they do 2,000 a day. So you can do 2,000 a day, 5,000 a week. And then it changes on a sliding scale based on if Bitcoin's going up or if it's going down. Like it allows you to take more out or less out. It's like, oh my gosh, man, it's going to take me 2 months, 3 months to get all my Bitcoin out of this Cash App.
Well, but you could transfer it, right?
It's a good problem to have.
Well, you could transfer the Bitcoin though, couldn't you?
You can only sell it. You can only transfer it up to $5,000 per week, $5,000 per week.
Even not just withdrawal, but even to someone else, if you were going to send them Bitcoin from your wallet, you can't take it off of there either. Oh wow, okay, yeah, that's
because you got to remember, like you're taking it off their blockchain, taking it out of Cash App's wallet and putting it into a decentralized wallet.
It's not your own wallet. Yeah.
It could be my wallet. It could be someone else's wallet. Whoever's wallet it is, they still limit you to 5,000 per week, 2,000 per day.
I mean, on Cash App, you don't have your own wallet. You're using their wallet. So that, because they're the custodian. You're not, you're not the custodian.
And they're probably leveraging that money and making interest off that money in the same way, whatever they have it with Bitfire, whatever they're doing to leverage that money, they're probably leveraging that Bitcoin in the same way a bank leverages our money. And then they make it so there's a funnel mechanism so that you can't get the money out as fast as possible. And I should make a video, criticizing Jack for that, because all the people, it's very devious and very intelligent. I got to give him credit. It's extremely smart to do that, but at the same time, extremely devious. And I would expect nothing less out of Jack. But it's like it's you have to watch out, because they're going to want to maintain, even though you see on your screen a digital number, I have this much Bitcoin. You don't own your Bitcoin unless you own the keys. Unless you have the keys, you own the seed phrase, you don't own that Bitcoin. And as soon as you do take it out of an exchange and you put it onto your own hard wallet, whether that be on your phone or whether that be on your physical cold storage hard wallet, well, now you're a reserve bank in that situation. Now you actually have the asset. And the difference between a reserve bank and the current commercial banks we have is a reserve bank, you actually are usually paying the reserve bank to hold your assets. This is back in the early days of Wells Fargo and stuff. If they were holding your gold and silver, well, they have a liability, just like you're saying, you got to store the safe somewhere. Well, they're holding it and insuring your money. So yeah, they're going to charge you 2% a year, because they're doing you a favor, because that money's not being made. They're not making money off that money. It's being stored somewhere. And that's what a reserve bank is. And Bitcoin allows you to be a free reserve bank, where this money is not, it's being held in cold storage, and you don't have to pay any rate at all. So even if the dollar was a sound money, which it's not, but say it was, and it was sitting in a bank account, you would have to pay some sort of interest to the reserve bank if it was a reserve bank. Right. But because it's Bitcoin, and because of the way it's designed, you are able to store your digital, it's like storing digital labor for free and having no inflation on it at all. There's no rate of inflation on this money. It is a deflationary asset that you can actually store with no percentage per year that you have to pay to store it. So it's very elegant in that design. And it's great that you brought that up, that Bitcoin is more of a store of value and an ability. If you want to buy a house in Bitcoin, if you want to buy a car in Bitcoin, it makes a lot of sense. And it's actually quite cheap. If you think about, the things like, because I deal with PayPal a lot, they take roughly 3% to do a PayPal deal. So 3% is what they want. So if you move 100 grand, they take 3,000.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but if you move 100 grand in Bitcoin, if you want that Bitcoin to go instantaneously, I mean, you're paying a couple $100 max, to instantaneously send 100 grand worth of Bitcoin. So it's far better than PayPal. It might not beat a $35 wire transfer service, but you got to store and be the reserve bank. So what value does that hold? There's a lot of different perspectives of it, but Bitcoin is certainly capable of being a transactionary thing when it comes to a high priced good, or a good that it doesn't matter that the money gets to you within a week, or if it gets to you within a couple days or whatever. But for a day-to-day instantaneous transaction, buying your lunch, buying your coffee, it's not for that. It's not for that. And it's proving to not be for that, especially as it gets larger and larger at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you can also use it to convert currency with do your own currency conversion without any middleman, right? Because you can literally take money to put into Bitcoin. I mean, you have to pay the transaction fee, obviously, but then you can sell the Bitcoin in a different currency. And that's, that's also the scary thing that governments don't like about it. There's a counter side to this. This guy, my email, he says, if you're dealing with serious money, do not use hardware wallets. No exchange uses it. They all use the official Bitcoin core wallet as it's the most vetted. So I think his argument here is that whatever hardware wallet you have has some code that's running, because it has to have some code, some system, and you don't know what that code is. And even if it's open source, it might not be as vetted as the Bitcoin core wallet. That open source code for the core wallet is the most vetted, and that is that true? All the exchange, I guess the exchange. So if the exchanges are using it, so the only way you could have the Bitcoin core wallet, if I understand, would be you have to be running that on software. So you have to be running on a Linux machine or something, maybe a machine disconnected from the network. But yeah,
if he's talking about, he might be talking about like in the billions, and so none of us are on that serious of a scale. But I mean, it seems like a valid question and concern. From what my understanding is the hard wallets are the safest possible place to put your money. But if they're, I could be corrected on that, so I'd have to look into that myself. I don't like answering. I don't think that's true. My gut says I don't think that's true, but I'm not going to say that I'm right or wrong on that. I would have to do my own research, but I would say that doesn't hold as much water as I think it in my mind. It doesn't make as much sense to say that only a Bitcoin official Bitcoin core wallets are the way to go. I think that's part of me thinks that I would have to do more research on that. I couldn't answer that with certainty.
Yeah, someone is saying that the email is not true, or official Bitcoin core wallets in fact support hardware wallets to sign transaction. So I don't know. That's one of the problems, is like trying to figure out all of the at the basic level, like how to buy and sell Bitcoin is fairly easy. Like you can figure that out in a day. But when you start to dig really deep into the like where, you know, this whole issue and all these issues, it's like, oh, well, yeah, I remember when I was first looking, because I was telling you Gregory was the one who I knew that was the most knowledgeable about cryptocurrency. I was like, well, I'm trying to research what kind of wallet should I get and what kind of software, how, and there was just, I went down a rabbit hole for a long time. That's where I ended up with the iPhone solution, but I'm gonna have to revisit it again, I suppose. So
Yeah, there's so much to be learned in this space, and it's really beautiful to be on the journey with everybody else. You know, I'm not some guru in the precious metals world or the Bitcoin world. I'm still learning myself. I have a little bit more knowledge maybe than most in those spaces, but I'm still learning everything. Every day I'm learning new things about the space. And you know, if you told me 10 years ago that Bitcoin would turn into what it is today, I mean, I would have been in awe. I would have no idea that it's turned into what it is today, and seeing where it is now and seeing it, or if you, better yet, if you told me like 4 years ago when it was starting to get on my radar, that Tesla would at some point buy a $1 billion, a $1.5 billion. I'd be like, no way, you're kidding me. And you tell me this guy's going to promote Doggy Coin or Dogecoin too? Oh my, what a crazy world that's going to be. And you know, I'm not going to be able to go get a cheeseburger and sit down and eat a cheeseburger inside. I'm not going to be able to do that either. Like, wow, it's going to be a really wild world in 2020, you know, 2021 now. So there's so many different aspects of all of this that's going on. But I'll tell you one thing I will say with Michael Saylor, he's like it was a really big deal for me to acquire mineralx.com and mineralexchange.com. And he acquired hope.com. He like I think it's micro, I keep messing up the name of his company. I think it's either Microsystems or Micro Solutions or micro something. But he specialized in buying domains back when it was cheap and he was able to acquire these big domains, and he called Bitcoin hope.com. Like he used hope.com as an extension to teach people about Bitcoin. And Bitcoin really is hope, you know, and that's why I always countered Peter's shift, because it's hope that we are able to get into a realm where the people have control of the money again. And that's the way it was always meant to be. You know, it wasn't meant to be this big divide between two different parties and people hating each other and all of this. It was just meant to, the reason we called the country a republic, and in the actual, you know, Pledge of Allegiance, we say, and to the republic for which it stands, is because the republic just meant the people have the power. It didn't mean to be divided. It didn't mean to be political parties. It just means the people have the power. And in our Constitution, I believe it's Amendment 10, they talk about the only money should be silver and gold coinage that the states can make. The only money that the states can make is silver and gold coinage. And somehow down the line, we have deviated so far from the people having control of the money and being we the people. You know, we the people is the term from the Constitution. You know, we don't have, you know, a decentralized money the way that we used to. The reason they made the money out of gold and silver was if we had a tyrannical government, well, we had gold and silver. You know, we didn't have to use their currency, even though we saw, you know, United States silver dollar or United States $20 gold piece. We had an ounce of gold. When we had a $20 gold piece, we could bring that wherever, and we had an ounce of gold. And so what Bitcoin does is if we are afraid of the dilution of the dollar, or afraid of fiat currency in general, from all the different fiat currencies in the basket of fiat currencies, we have something out there that is a decentralized money, and a money that can't be shut down by just one entity. You know, the Fed can't just shut it down. You'd have to shut down all the electricity across the entire world, all the internet across the entire world. And I know that people bring that up, you know, EMP, this and that. If this happens, if that happens, we are in so much serious more problems than, I mean, that you don't care about any monetary instrument at that point, you know, like that,
guns and stored food is what
so it's like, so dollars is the better play. Fine, sure. You're not going to have access to the internet. So if you have your money with Chase Bank or something, you're not going to have your access to your money either in that situation. All their systems are going to be shut down too. The whole stock market's going to be shut down. So is your money in stocks? Because that's all going to be shut down too. Everything would be shut down in that situation. So what it's done here is, it's like, I honestly feel like, is it aliens that drop Bitcoin down? It's like, okay, fine. Here's the way it works. Ethereum and Bitcoin, figure it out, you stupid humans, you know, like, is it aliens that drop this down? I don't know. But the thing is, it's just such a beautiful technology. And the fact that it exists, I agree with Michael Saylor. It is hope. It is hope. And I really admire his thinking on Bitcoin and his logic behind it. The way that he, somebody asked him what it would take for you to sell your Bitcoin. And Michael Saylor, rather than just say, never, diamond hands, you know, he actually sat down and he logically said, when something better comes out. If there's something better that comes out. And what he meant by that is, if you're riding a bicycle down the street and you look to your left and, you know, there's a skateboard, you can be like, I'm going to stick with the bicycle. It's faster. I like this better. The skateboard seems like a little bit too much work, you know? But if you're riding your bicycle and you see a car fly by or drive by you, you know, and you go, oh, okay, the car's better. I'm going to go with the car. And so right now we're riding our bicycle of fiat currency and we see Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's like a Learjet. And it's like, okay, well, that's better. It's finite at 21 million. It's decentralized. That's better. I'm going to go with the Learjet over these, you know, the bicycle I'm riding currently. So as soon as, you know, there's a faster jet out there, or there's something that's, you know, some teleportation or something, then we're going to go to that. That's better. But right now, Bitcoin's number one, you know, for a store of value in the digital realm. Excuse me, it's not number one when it comes to, you know, buying a coffee or something like that. But in my eyes, because I have done transactions in Bitcoin when you're talking about, you know, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, you're moving larger amounts of money in Bitcoin. It really works well. And the fees are so marginal. Like, why did PayPal become so much bigger than eBay when it was eBay's, like, well, this is an argument I just made recently against Peter Schiff's argument. It's basically by saying Bitcoin's zero, you're basically saying PayPal's worthless. It's like, what is PayPal? Well, it's an escrow of money. It's moving money from one person to another person online.
Yeah.
And so
technically you have, like, you think you have dollars in PayPal, but you really have PayPals because without that, it doesn't exist. I mean, you know, and that's the way I look at it. But so
yeah, and they're charging 3%. And so do you beat 3% with Bitcoin? Absolutely. You smash 3% figures. It does not charge you 3% to move Bitcoin around. Right. And so you're moving it around. And the whole reason for PayPal is so that you are protected as a buyer and protected as a seller. And the protection comes from, if you trust the party that you're buying from, if they have a good reputation and you've done your own due diligence, because you don't want to trust anybody with a payment online, regardless if it's good or services or whatever with PayPal, but they are standing to be the escrow. So somebody buys a silver bar, somebody pays 3,000 and it sits within PayPal's account. They see I shipped said bar. Now they disperse money to me. You know, they're the escrow agent there. But with Bitcoin, once you send it, it's done. I have the money. That money's been sent, and if you trust me, if you've done your due diligence on me and my reputation, well, then you know you're going to get your product, you're going to get shipping, you're going to get your tracking number and all of that. And so you have a situation where, why did PayPal become worth so much more than eBay? Well, because people just want a way to buy and sell things cheap online. They want a way to do transactions online, and they were sick of paying this central party, if you will, of eBay 10% to be the intermediary of the money. So when PayPal got spun off by Carl Icahn, ironically, it used to be under eBay, but then PayPal becomes worth, you know, $310 billion and while eBay is only at 40 billion. So it's like, wait, why did this almost, you know, do an order of magnitude of a gain, you know, against eBay? It's because people want to just be able to have less fees on their transaction online. They go, I know John. I want to just pay him for what he provides for me. And I know him, I trust him, and I just want to get him his money, but I don't want to have to pay you guys 13% to do that. I don't want to have to pay you 10% at eBay and you 3% at PayPal. I'd rather just pay my PayPal. So they cut it down to 3%. So what's the next stage in this? Well, cutting it down to less than 1%. And how do you do that? Bitcoin does that. So what's next after that? What's next? Maybe the XRP thing works. Maybe, you know, whatever the next thing is on what they do for transactions. But for right now, when it comes to sending money and you don't care about the money getting there within an hour, then Bitcoin is number one, you know? And if you want to store your money in the digital age, Bitcoin is number one. When it comes to buying a coffee and stuff like that, there's work to do. And luckily there's a lot of different coins that are working on that right now.
Yeah. I mean, well, the whole thing of like, I mean, it's kind of funny because history repeats itself, right? So when you think about why there's legal tender, the only reason why there's legal tender was because it was inconvenient back in the day to buy your coffee with gold. Right, or with right. So then they're like, okay, well, you know, this is to represent that. So the same thing, you know, is likely to happen with Bitcoin. It's like, well, you know, it's like it's a guarantee because a note is a promissory. In fact, banks used to issue currency. It wasn't the government that issued currency. Banks issued currency because they were just IOUs. That was it. It was like you like, okay, we trust this bank. In fact, checks are basically the equivalent of what used to be dollars, right? Is because we used to you used to have your money in the bank, and then when you wanted to spend your money, they gave you a note that said, hey, you have this much money, he's good for it, and then you could give that note to someone and they would say, well, what bank is it from? Okay, that bank I trust, here we go, well, I'll give you your thing. So yeah, it's interesting, the history of it. But
Yeah, I made a video on this too, where it was like if somebody was pitching, a gold backed cryptocurrency. What if we had a storage? The
Oh
problem
yeah,
is
someone's gonna.
history does repeat itself. And what happened last time when we trusted the custodian with the money?
Yeah,
Ironically enough, I have like old assay bars, these old silver assay bars that are
yeah,
from the actual New York assay office when you had to bring them silver certificates to get this 1,000 ounce bar that I have. And so I have
yeah,
like it's from 1951. I have two of them that were made side by side in the assay office in 1951. They're like these collectible silver bars from the actual U.S. Assay Office. They're pretty cool bars. I have them in my collection. I'm not selling those. I like those too much. But it brings back to the point of, okay, well, we used to be able to redeem our money to silver and gold, but we trusted them to do that. And then eventually, what happened when we trusted that custodian? Well, they
right.
said, it's ours now, actually. Thanks. We gave you IOU notes, and guess what? They're not IOU notes, so we're just keeping them. So it's like, wait a minute, what? It's like, oh, what are you gonna do about it? Nothing. We got bullied out of our money, and
Yeah,
so that could repeat itself because you're trusting. If you have a gold-backed cryptocurrency, it's better to just have your money stored in the digital realm. And I know it's so hard to digest having money in a digital realm that is technically, nothingness. It's like it's technically just a digital. It's crazy to think about that, but when you actually start researching into the mechanics behind Bitcoin, it's a network. What we have here is a
yeah,
network of decentralized miners across the world. The intrinsic value is the network of miners. And are these miners just going to, the whole argument of Peter Schiff is going, okay, well, there could be a Bitcoin overnight, a Bitcoin number 2 overnight that goes to compete with Bitcoin number 1. And first off, they're trying really hard.
right.
There are many coins trying to be
Exactly.
Bitcoin and take that top spot from Bitcoin, but they can't because you can't, just like you can't tell a gold miner, hey, I want to mine for cobalt now. It's like, no, I'm going to mine for gold. Like I make money off my gold. Everybody's valuing my Bitcoin in this much. I'm not going to go into gold. That would be crazy. I'm not going to go into cobalt. I want to mine my gold. And so
Yeah.
the intrinsic value of Bitcoin is this network of decentralized miners. And it's just such a beautiful, elegant system that we have. And I'm enamored of the fact that it exists, to be honest with you. It's something really special.
There's a really good book. I think you'd like it if you haven't read it already. It's called The Bitcoin Standard. It's the book that really convinced me of the case of Bitcoin because it talks about monetary systems. It talks about the history of monetary systems. It talks about like really the value of money is just a store of value, right? And this whole idea that it's like, well, look, the thing is, you want hard money. Hard money means money that can't be diluted, right? That like retains its value over time, and that's why gold has always been, the classic, the best hard money that's been available because other money has been diluted over time. Someone can make more, and even gold's, because of its rarity, or precious metals because of rarity, it can only be mined at a certain rate, so it can't increase by a huge amount. That like the stock to flow model. So anyway, the book is really good because it talks about even the history of like using. There's a culture that used these big stone obelisks as money, and you couldn't move them. But what they would do when they wanted to transfer it is they would say, okay, they'd have a ceremony and say, you're the owner of this obelisk now, right? It is a stationary thing, but it still functioned as money because the whole point is that money is nothing. Money is just an acknowledgement of value, right? It's a transporter of value, right? So it's like if I have some fish and you have some wheat, and this guy's got apples. Well, in order for me to trade those things, I need some kind of intermediate. I could use salt. Salt was money at one point in the Roman Empire. I could use this salt, and this salt is going to represent this value that would allow me to transfer my fish into getting some wheat and getting some apples instead of me having to trade 1-to-1. Okay, I need to trade to get the wheat, need to trade to get the apples, right? I can have one thing that we can all trade amongst each other and exchange, but it's a temporary thing that's holding that value, and the better the money is, the better it holds that value. And when I got that, that's when I was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. This is a future. This has to be there. There's no, I don't know how long it'll take, but at some point in the future, in the near future, this has to be the thing that replaces all the other currencies. Because just like you said, if you're on a bike and this is a Learjet, this is the Learjet. Because that made me see this as a Learjet. Because then I was like, okay, this is better than anything else that exists by orders of magnitude. So
I agree. I gotta look into that book. I haven't read it yet, but I'd love to. we need clones, John. We need clones. One of them to be reading books, one of them to be doing the website stuff,
Exactly.
one of them to be doing the marketing. I could use like 3 of them, I don't know about you. I imagine you need at least 10 of them, but I could use some clones right now because I want to be able to just sit down and read, but it's like, okay, I got to come up with 100 grand for this and I got to do that for this and that. It's like, oh my gosh, man. There's only so much time in the day, it seems like these days, man, but I would love to be able to start reading some more.
So my email has a good question. He says, how is Bitcoin a store of value when it frequently drops 80% and it goes up 100%? If you want to store $1,000 value, Bitcoin is too volatile for that. It won't store 1K well. And I agree, but it's going to be a good store of value when the volatility dies down. Like any kind of asset, like the higher the market cap, the less that it's like if you have a bucket. If I have this glass and I drop a drop into it, it makes a lot of ripple. It changes the volume of it. But if I have a ocean and I drop a drop of water into it, it doesn't make a difference. I can't affect the levels of that ocean. I have to dump a shit ton of water in order to make the ocean levels rise. We have to melt glaciers. And so right now, Bitcoin is still in infancy. I mean, the market cap is just past 1 trillion, then went under that. Whereas what you said, gold is what, 13 trillion? Is that the what's the market cap of precious metals?
Are you talking about like gold's market cap's roughly 10 trillion?
10 trillion. Okay.
So you nailed it. You nailed it on the. It's like that's exactly what it's very new. It's very right. I mean, when you talk about the basket of fiat currencies out there, you're talking about over a quadrillion, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trillions of dollars. So we have a false perception that this is maintaining a value, but the false perception is the hidden tax on it is inflation that we don't see on a day-to-day basis. We only see it over time. And so eventually we will see how volatile the dollar really is, but we just don't see it, day to day. But yeah, in the beginning, I mean, this is a new technology. And so I'm looking at, let's look up Bitcoin's price right now. I mean, it does seem to be somewhat, I mean, I know it's crazy to say stable when it's having 5-6% fluctuations, but it seems to be staying somewhat in that 40,000 to 58,000. But I mean, it's steadily going up, it seems like. I mean, but it is extremely volatile. And I would imagine that it's going to take another 10 years before that volatility really slows down, another 5-10 years before it slows down. So we're really still early in the game with Bitcoin when you realize it's only a $1 trillion market cap versus the possibility of, being a currency like the dollar. I mean, we're talking, could you imagine if Bitcoin got to $100 trillion market cap, which is, a fraction of the amount of dollars out there. We're talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trillions of dollars out there. If Bitcoin got to 10 trillion, just 10 trillion, which is the same market cap as gold, which is what my models, I kind of have the same models as Kathy Wood on that approach. And I think that's very conservative to say I could get to 10 trillion. I mean, you're talking about a $550,000 Bitcoin, $500,000 Bitcoin. So what happens if it turns to 100,000, 100 trillion, if it gets to 100 trillion, you're talking about a $5 million Bitcoin, and so it's
very
like
stable at that point. Yeah. So,
much more stable at that point. So it's a crazy racket. It really is. And it takes a lot of time and patience to learn about it. And it definitely, I think the options trading has fried my nerves where I can actually just be like, all right, well, I believe in the long-term thing. I'm going to leave it in these hard wallets. I think that might be the other thing about the hard wallets for me is it's like, it's there. I can't touch it. It's go away. Like just go in your corner. I know you're safe over there and I'm not going to touch you. Just stay there and I'm not going to mess with it. And I look at Bitcoin that way where it's like Tesla at $30 a share. It's like, just leave it. Just don't touch it. Just leave it.
And if you look at too, like what you just said, like the volatility of, let's say, take the volatility of gold, right? Gold right now does go up and down, right? Not by huge amounts, but I mean, it went a couple percent down today. I mean, that was a decent, a big move. It's not swinging like Bitcoin, but gold has a 10 trillion market cap. Bitcoin has a 1 trillion. Imagine if gold had a 1 trillion market cap. It would fluctuate by 10x what it does right now. I mean, you'd see big 10% swings in a day potentially, right? If that, but because the market cap's so big, because there's 10 trillion of it, it's a lot harder for any one party or any large transaction to push a price up or down. And so it's always like volatility is almost always a product of the market capitalization, how many users are in the system. So
absolutely. I just looked at it right now, and it's, I mean, the idea that they could bring down gold and silver at this time, it's just it boggles the mind. It doesn't make, and Bitcoin pulling back too. You think that this is just, if there was a time for Bitcoin, for precious metals, I couldn't imagine a better scenario than, and it's hard to say better scenario. I don't mean it in that way. I mean, for this specific situation, it's hard to imagine that this would bring down, there'd be a situation like we have today where gold and silver would be down and Bitcoin could go down. It's like, people are going to want to start piling out of the dollar, but the problem is people usually move in herds, in a sense where, you see most people that weren't interested in Bitcoin back when it was 3,000, are now all of a sudden interested at 45K,
Right.
and so I think that we should see right now, if I had to put my own prices on things in this current climate, I would say silver well over 150. I'd say gold well over 5,000. I'd say Bitcoin well over 100K. It's just, but the smoke and mirrors is still in full effect right now. And I have a feeling that that's going to change over time as more and more people learn about this. And what we're doing right now, putting this information out on YouTube, it's completely free to watch this information on YouTube. And it's just really special to be able to put this information out there. And I think there's more and more people learning about these subjects based on the knowledge out there. And with Bitcoin, the perfect storm is really in place, because if the barrier of entry back in the first bull run over 20K was very high, because you really only had Coinbase, and people were like, what's Coinbase? I don't know what this big, that's kind of crazy to go with this random Coinbase thing and buy Bitcoin. But now the barrier of entry has dropped tremendously, because you can impulsively buy it like it's a 7-Eleven convenience good. You can impulsively buy Bitcoin with Cash App or PayPal and just, I've sold something on PayPal, I got an extra $2,000 there, throw it in Bitcoin, whatever, I don't care. And you put it in Bitcoin. And then all of a sudden now you have Bitcoin. Or if you're in a position like what I did with Cash App, you're like, oh, wow, I have a whole Bitcoin in Cash App. How do I get this out of Cash App? And oh, wait, it's going to take me 3 months to get it out, because Jack is a smart little devious guy, but he made it so it's hard to get your money out of Cash App. But it's like, it's still, the idea is it was just impulsive and it was easy to buy Bitcoin. And now that the barrier of entry has gone down tremendously in today's day and age to buy Bitcoin, but also the information on Bitcoin is at all-time highs. Exactly, so you have information at all-time highs and the barrier of entry at all-time lows. What an interesting combination that is. It seems to me like that's a perfect storm for money to be funneled out of the fiat currency system and into Bitcoin. And if gold was like a needle headed for the balloon of fiat currency, Bitcoin is like a javelin being thrown by an Olympian. It's really, I'd be scared of it. If I was yelling, I'd be scared of it. If I was on, the Fed's team or something, I would be scared of what's going on.
I'd be playing dumb. As I think it happened, like acting like, oh, everyone's like, oh, look at this idiot who doesn't understand what Bitcoin is, where your job is to understand. Like that's an act. That's an act, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's an act. But
seems that way. That way.
All right, I actually I should probably get going to the gym so I can work on my hard wallet, my hard storage. but guys, check out Rob's channel. I put a link down below in the description. He's got great content, and I've been really enjoying it. He's an up and coming star. As soon as I saw your live stream, I was like, yeah, this guy's gonna he's going to the moon with your ability to explain things and just your outlook on things. So definitely appreciate you coming on the channel. But guys, go check it out. And then your site, if someone, well, I guess you're sold out of things, but Mineral Exchange, is it .com?
Yeah, mineralexchange.com. Yeah, and my Instagrams are all, it's Rob Soltan on Instagram, Mineral Exchange on Instagram. But I apologize if the quality of the video is bad. I really wanted to be on this with you, John. I really appreciate the invite and everything. I couldn't figure out my normal camera here, so I just went on live with I have my mic, so hopefully the audio is okay. But I'm sorry if the camera quality isn't too good on this one. I was just using my laptop camera here. But I really appreciate you having me on, man. And it's I've been going through your channel, and it's really, you put some great stuff out there, John. I really appreciate you having me on your channel.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a good discussion. Hopefully we educated some people in this entertaining discussion. So yeah, where are you at, by the way? Where do you live?
Kind of LA based, a little bit outside of the city. I kind of we keep the location of Mineral Exchange kind of under wraps in a way when it comes to the warehouse and everything like that. So I try to keep it a little bit more under wraps in a way and use different shipping areas and whatnot. But I'm actually starting to lean more towards moving to Nevada, as much as I don't want to leave the weather of California. I'm starting to want to be part of the flood of people going to Nevada. And buy the next warehouse out there. That's my first real estate purchase, might be a commercial property in Nevada for the company. So that's kind of something I've had in the pipeline and something I'm thinking about. But as the tax rates continue to go up, and now they're talking about a wealth tax and stuff like that, it's getting kind of nerve wracking to be here, you know. And it's some of the smartest guys I know in California are looking to at least make their LLCs in different states and whatnot. And so I'm getting a little bit of getting a little nervous myself.
Yeah, even if you have an LLC like in a different state, if you have any nexus to California, they tax you if you hold any LLCs and you live in California. So it's but yeah, I'm in San Diego right now. So, but all right, well, yeah. Thanks for coming on again, guys. Link in the description. Go subscribe. Go show some love on Rob's channel, and I guess that's it. All right, thanks for showing up.
Thanks for having me, John. I really appreciate it.